threw fireworks and other objects and set alight some garbage bags and cardboard boxes. Police responded with water cannon and tear gas, while several fans have now been detained. Well, here's Arise Sports correspondent Epi Yomo in Doha.
First of all, it's never too early to start looking at the 2026 World Cup. That is exactly what Morocco did. In 2018, they were kicked out of the World Cup in the group stages. They lost to some European teams, Belgium, and they drew against Spain. But they actually sat back and re-strategized. Morocco's victory at the World Cup or their run at the World Cup might be said to be unprecedented, but I would say it was targeted. Towards about 3-4 months ago, they got this current coach, Walid Regragui, who was the CAF Champions League winner with a Moroccan team. So it shows that this year alone, the Moroccan national team, be it male and female, be it club side or otherwise, they've had successful runs. They've been able to achieve either the finals or victory in total. It goes to show that other West African teams could actually achieve what Morocco have done if they really want to do it. First of all, they have to prioritize sports or football, not just waiting till a year or two before.
And that's it for today. Up next is the morning show. It's a full day ahead, and every moment matters. I am Kenneth Warmer. Thanks for watching.
Festival of joy, globe promo, and my fans get fans with them still we know still. Even if light or fan, we go still go. Hey, wait, now they don't carry lights. We the region, so more light will still show. It's the festival of joy, globe promo. Fashion killer, dress code bigger, win so we machine for the globe festival. Like I just the win left, right and center. That's the 611 ash to enter. Festival of joy, oh yeah. Festival of joy, 611 ash to enjoy. Festival of joy, oh boy. Festival of joy, ash to
is the greatest threat. The lawyers, the judges, the politicians.
MKO, Victoria, Adiola.
Step back from me, please. Bring it down.
But right at the premises of the vehicle inspection office.
And you can see cars being burned, buildings razed.
You can see the smoke, the fire, the way it is going on.
The level of poverty is almost unimaginable.
The morning show. We never stop talking about the things that matter to you.
Quiet on set, please. We're going live in 3, 2, 1.
Knowledge is power. Information is currency. Trust us to tell you what you need to hear. Welcome to the program. You're with Arise News in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Breaking news, exclusive interviews, unrivaled analysis. It's you, the audience, who drives our agenda. We tell the stories that inform you, the stories that are important to you, and the stories that are about you. We are not every news channel. We are Arise News.
This is the heart of the business world in Lagos, the commercial capital of Africa's largest economy.
These aren't just numbers. They represent our nation's sharpest minds, our most successful investors, our most inspiring bosses. In Nigeria, business is in our DNA. From micro-business to startups to world-conquering brands. Every success story has something in common. They all started somewhere. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Global Business Report gets to the heart of business. We bring you the stories making headlines across the globe with in-depth analysis from experts and executives.
This is not business as usual. This is the Global Business Report. This is the heart of the business world in Lagos, the commercial capital of Africa's largest economy.
These aren't just numbers. They represent our nation's sharpest minds, our most successful investors, our most inspiring bosses. In Nigeria, business is in our DNA. From micro-business to startups to world-conquering brands. Every success story has something in common. They all started somewhere. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Global Business Report gets to the heart of business. We bring you the stories making headlines across the globe with in-depth analysis from experts and executives.
This is not business as usual. This is the Global Business Report.
A bit of showbiz. If it's happening in the world of entertainment, you'll be hearing about it here.
From what's trending on the socials to music and movies, and all the latest showbiz gossip from around the world. Join us for a front row seat at the Oscars in Los Angeles, or the biggest moments from Fashion Week. It's fun, it's fresh, and it's packed full of all the entertainment news you need to know. You heard it here first. I'm Kachi Ofia, and this is Arise 360, where every culture matters.
It all starts with a bell. And that bell means it's business time. The bell rings in London, Lagos, Cairo, and Joburg, kicking off a new day of opportunities. New idea being born and bought, deals being done, big global players winning big or losing it all. IPOs, mergers, takeovers, stocks, bonds, and commodities. In the business world, the winner takes the spoils. In the business day, every moment matters. Trust us to be your guide to the highs and lows of the global marketplace. We'll round up the business day with up, what's down, the bears and the bulls, and what to watch out for. This is Arise Exchange.
Good morning. You're watching The Morning Show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati.
I'm Ayo Mairo Essing.
And I'm Rufai today. We've got a great show lined up for you for the next 3 hours. So sit back, relax, and let's kickstart your day because the morning show begins right now.
Press freedom is something that should never be impeded, as the media represents the voice of the people who seek information and answers from their leaders. So it becomes a joke when veteran journalists who are supposed to be role models to the younger generation in the media adopt bullying tactics to silence the very profession they claim to represent. In the past, the All Progressives Congress, APC, condemned the Goodluck Jonathan administration, accusing him of tampering with press freedom during his government. Fast forward today, some members of the APC Presidential Campaign Council, which includes the Director of Media and Publicity, Bayo Ononuga, and Advisor Media and Strategic Communication, Dele Alake, have tried to silence the media in order to protect the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, from scrutiny. Joining us on this show later this morning to discuss this attempt by the APC Presidential Communications Council directors to bully and intimidate the media is David Wundeyi, an investigative journalist, and Agba Jalingo, a Nigerian journalist and activist.
Moving things along, we shall be engaging Victoria Ibeze Mohaire, Executive Director, Spaces for Change. We'll be discussing the 91-page research on energy transition in Nigeria's oil-rich communities conducted by S4C Youths and Environmental Advocacy Center and Extractives 360.
Let's catch up on news making headlines across the globe. I can also give us an update on global business outlook. While Tadiri will update us on Africa business activities across the continent. Aaron Akirjala will be taking us through sport and activities across the globe. Also review today's newspaper with Arise News analyst Emmanuel Afeni. While Audrey Okwe will fill us in on what's trending around the world. It's going to be all that and a whole lot more today on The Morning Show. Welcome back to The Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. Now time to take a look at news stories making headlines around the globe. The U.S. President Joe Biden has announced a series of new partnerships with African countries that he touts as crucial for global success. Delegations from 49 countries and African Union, including 45 African national leaders, are attending a 3-day summit, which is the first of its kind since 2014. Mr. Biden says the United States seeks partnership to foster dependence and spur shared success and opportunity. His comments come as Washington tries to check expanding Russian and Chinese influence on the continent. So, well, for more, let's bring in correspondent Nkechi Nana, who's live in Washington, D.C. Nkechi, can you tell us more about the AfCFTA signings and other issues around there?
Yes, Rufai, good morning. Thanks for having me. Now, you know, the United States commitments to that project has actually sort of been questioned when you put it side by side with the Africa Growth and Opportunities Act. And that sort of changed yesterday with that U.S. signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with the new Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, which has largely been sort of expected at the summit. Everyone has been looking forward to this, and it's a pact that would create a free trade market, one of the largest in the world, a continent-wide market totaling $3.4 trillion, with the potential to really lift 30 million people out of extreme poverty. And the agreement will help unlock new opportunities for trade and investment for both parties. And from the beginning of the summit, from the opening plenary, you had Ghana's President Nana Akufo-Addo really reiterating the fact that, look, it's time for Africa to replicate the sort of economic development and wealth creation model that the European Union has, where you have 75% of trade within the EU. And we know that the implementation of this project or program has been delayed for several reasons: COVID-19, the refusal of some of the signatories to ratify it. And when you look at the US, the number of what the US is doing, even since 2021, you have US government agencies really helping close more than 800 two-way trade investment deals across Africa, estimated over $18 billion. You really know that this is one of the achievements of this summit, Rufai.
Hi, thanks, Nneka. Now, what other agreements were reached on day 2, apart from the MOU signing?
Yes, a lot of investment opportunities. I had a report earlier where President Joe Biden was really doting out all those investment opportunities that the U.S. has provided for Africa, and not just the U.S. government, also private sector. And so the second day of this summit really focused on increasing that two-way trade and investment between Africa and the U.S. You had the CEOs of private sector leadership from over 300 American and African companies coming together with the heads of delegations to sort of catalyze those investments in health sector, infrastructure, energy, agribusiness, and others. And one thing that sort of stands out with this summit is the involvement and the engagement of the private sector. Very important. It's not just about the US government and the African nations' governments. It's also about the private sector and their large sort of contribution when it comes to investment. And it's important because in most African countries, you see that the private sector sort of is ahead of the African government, so to say. They sort of see the future. Meanwhile, you have those African governments and their political leaders playing catch up to the creative industry when it comes to healthcare, digitization, entrepreneurship. So it's really important to have those private sector investments as well. There were a lot of them announced yesterday from Microsoft Corporation, and you also have Visa. But when it comes to departments and agencies of the US government, you had the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which had the signing of an MOU as well with the governments of Benin and Niger. They signed the first regional compacts totaling $504 million just to increase and support regional economic integration, trade, cross-border collaboration, and many others. Look, if I start doting out all the investment opportunities that were announced yesterday, I'll take up your whole show.
Well, President Biden met with President Buhari and other world leaders who will hold elections next year. Can you tell us more about the meeting the U.S. president had with those presidents?
You're right, Dr. Abachi. U.S. President Joe Biden met with 6 leaders from African nations that will hold elections next year, and they say the meeting was to discuss a press for free votes. This was on the sidelines of the summit. You had our president, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari. As part of that meeting, obviously, we have our elections due in February. You also had President Tshisekedi of the DRC, who the United States has really hailed for agreeing to hold elections in his country. You know that he had sort of the country's first peaceful transfer of power. Then you also had Gabon's leader, Madagascar, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. And I think it was important for the United States to sort of mention that, look, we're not having this meeting with these particular countries because we have an issue or we have concerns. It's just a way to sit down and discuss in the build up to the elections next year, which is close by. We need to sit down and have a discussion of our renewed value of democracy, which is something that the Biden administration has been touting as the difference between their interest in Africa when it comes to China or Russia. And just pertaining to Nigeria, our own elections are less than 80 days away, and it's an election that could really strengthen or sort of set back our democracy. We have some good news in terms of the surge of voter registration, a wave of more civic engagement when it comes to Nigerian youth. And you also have some dangers, the risk of electoral violence, disputed election results in a country where you have political and really criminal violence at a really high level. It's reached new levels. And President Muhammadu Buhari, really at every opportunity he gets recently, has been reiterating the need for that smooth transition. If he doesn't leave anything for Nigeria, he wants his legacy to be that of a free election. And that's really the basis of that meeting they had at the White House with President Joe Biden.
Well, thank you very much, Nkechi. Thank you.
Right. The Senate has urged the Central Bank of Nigeria to adjust its policy on cash withdrawal limits in response to the public outcry that greeted the announcement. However, Arise correspondent Georgina Ndukwe Ezeaka reports that there was a mild drama before the proceedings.
Proceedings commencing at 12:30 p.m. as against the usual time of 10 a.m. Deputy President of the Senate, Ovie Omoagege, came in by 12:16 without any explanation. When Rivers East Senator George Sekibo raised the point of order, the Deputy Senate President ruled him out of order.
The senators are not supposed to come here and then just wait. Well, we don't know the fate whether you are around between us here and you are not. I think that next time, if you know that you are in another third corner, you can just delegate power to the leader of the Senate. He can act as the pro tempore Senate president. And then you do your business where you are doing. You finish and come back.
As you just read that, it says, if in the opinion of the President of the Senate, a prima facie case of breach of your privilege has been made, it is the opinion of the President of the Senate that a prima facie case has not been made. I therefore rule out of order.
The Red Chamber then settled down to conduct the legislative business of the day. Deputy governors of the central bank nominees were confirmed during plenary.
The nomination of Mrs. Aisha Undanazu Ahmed as Deputy Governor of CBN is hereby confirmed. The nomination of Edward Lamitek Adamu as Deputy Governor of CBN is hereby confirmed.
The Senate then began the deliberation on the new withdrawal limit of the CBN. The chairman on Banking and Finance, Senator Ubasani, in his lead debate, acknowledged the significant benefits of the policy to the economy, but suggested the need for wide consultation with stakeholders before the policy commences.
The central bank latest action on Naira redesign and nationwide implementation of cashless policy are intended to further sustain this achievement in the quest to foster a safe, credible, and efficient payment system that is the pride of all Nigerians and the envy of the world. It is neither targeted at any segment of the society nor intended to disenfranchise hardworking Nigerian citizens and businesses as insulated in some parts.
We also want to protect our people in rural areas from being attacked by bandits, being attacked by armed robbers who believe that there's a piggy bank in their homes. I think the moment it becomes clear to everyone that we've gone cashless, full-blown, and there's no money being hoarded in anybody's house, I think there will be reductions in armed robbery and banditry attacks as well.
Senators who support the policy say it will help mop up about 3 trillion naira currently in circulation.
Today, I would recommend the highest denomination to be 100 naira. The highest. And that's the only way we can even de-dollarize the Nigerian economy. We are killing ourselves by accumulating dollars in our houses.
We lack adequate critical infrastructure to support the cashless banking policy, but we must continue in the implementation of this policy because of the gains.
Some lawmakers say the policy will put about 1.4 million point of sale or POS operators and others in the informal sector out of business.
The farmers in my constituency who engage on their farms, dry season and rainy season, they need a lot of money.
By end of this month, with what they have mopped up, we should see at least a 7 percentage point in inflation rate. If it doesn't happen, then we should take out inflation as one of the reasons that we are introducing this cashless policy.
There are people who are already making a living out of this, out of the POS operation. The informal economy, part of informal economy. What are you going to do with them?
The CBN approved POS operators and registered them and took monies from them, no matter how little. And now, those people can only do so little. It took so many people off the roads.
Most of the senators here agree that the timeline and threshold set by the Central Bank of Nigeria should be extended.
So I'm suggesting that the threshold should be 500,000 naira, not 100,000. And for withdrawal per daily should be 100,000. And I say that this will be in line with what is realistic for society.
I've done this in our state for over 10 years with all the amount of industries we are running in Aba. We have done 3 million per day. So I don't see why they should come to 100,000 a week.
Despite concerns raised about the report not being specific on the recommended threshold limit, the Senate ruled in favor of an adjustment and mandated the committee to ensure an aggressive oversight of the CBN on its commitment to flexible adjustment of the withdrawal limit and report back on the outcome.
That the Senate should support the bank in the continuous implementation of the transformational payments and financial industry initiatives in line with its mandate in accordance with CBN Act. Those in favor of this will say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Georgina Ndukwezaika, Arise News.
All right, I want to have a start with this.
Well, very in-depth reports there by Georgina, so well done. But now speaking to obviously this has come up in debate since last week on the 6th of December. The CBN governor announced the new withdrawal limits for individuals and for organizations. Interesting times. There was a very robust conversation in the Senate. On the sidelines, it's clear to see that it's election season. The chambers was very scanty. However, didn't prevent that conversation from happening. I think it's also important to note a few things as well. Later on today, hopefully, the CBN governor will appear before the House of Reps to defend and speak to this new policy and talk about the gains to help also inform the decision by the House of Reps as to how to move. Now, some of the arguments that have come up are things that analysts across have said following the announcement of the new policy, chief of which is the impact on rural dwellers and small business owners, especially the POS operators. And they've talked about the fact that the fact that it's a good policy isn't in contention for a number of these senators. However, what they've talked about is, number one, the timing. Number two, a wider consultation, because it's meant to come into effect on the 9th of January 2023. That's in about 2 to 3 weeks. Very short timing. They've also asked that how has information or campaign been disseminated, especially to rural dwellers. They've also talked about, which we've mentioned a number of times, the fact that we do not have the technological infrastructure to fully embrace a cashless society. I'll give an example and then I'll move on. For a few days now, the bank app I use, and a number of people have talked about this, has not been able to transfer money from its bank to another bank. This has happened a number of times. I have had to step in using cash as an alternative. Ideally, I'm all for the cashless society. I hold as little cash as possible. But in situations like this where you can be embarrassed or things would happen, you need to ensure that you sort out these challenges with technology to ensure that we're able to embrace this cashless society that the CBN is pushing for. Again, I'm looking forward to the outcome of the CBN governor's appearance before the House of Reps this later on today.
Dr. Bati? Okay, on October 26th, the Central Bank of Nigeria announced its decision to redesign the 100 naira, the 200 naira, 500 naira, and 1,000 naira notes, and then announced that people will have, a window of 3 months to return the old notes, because the deadline will be January 9 next year for you to return, and that by January 31, of course, you won't be able to use your old notes anymore. Of course, that was bound to generate some controversies, because the argument put forward by the CBN was that the policy was necessary. One, to check the amount of money outside the banking system. Out of 3.3 trillion in circulation, we were told that 2.7 trillion naira were outside the vaults. Two, also to check currency counterfeiting. Three, to encourage financial inclusion. Four, to check the use of the naira for payment. Five, to reduce the amount of money in circulation. And the CBN pointed out that it was within its powers to do so. Under Section 2D of the CBN Act, Section 19, 20, and 47. And at the last time that Nigeria had redesigned or changed any currency was in 2014 against the global best practice. Of course, this was bound to generate concern. There were talks about whether this is about the election in 2023 or not. But now the representatives of the people have taken up the matter. First, the House of Reps. Second, the Senate. The House of Reps about a week ago said the CBN governor and his team must appear before the House of Representatives today to come and explain the policy afresh. The Senate yesterday debated the matter and arrived at a number of resolutions. I think as representatives of the people, what they have done basically is to reflect also the concerns of the people about that policy. But what everyone should note is that nobody, either in the House of Reps or the Senate, complained about the legality of what the CBN has done and the powers that it has exercised in this regard. Two, nobody said what has been done, does not have the support, of the policy system, within Nigeria, or that it is a violation of global best practice. What they are complaining about is, one, the timing, because in many parts of the world, people are given up to about 6 months when you have this kind of redesign. But the CBN has given just about 3 months. But if you look at the law, that is what is in the CBN Act. You need just 3 months. Two, the CBN has the support of the President of Nigeria under Section 19 of the same CBN Act. Three, the CBN made it very clear about a week ago, Godwin Emefiele made it clear that the CBN is not rigid. It is willing to listen to ideas and to review the process as and when the need arises. So all of those concerns, expressed by the lawmakers, I don't think that the CBN has this attitude that it was going to be rigid about it. Because if it were to be rigid, then it would be draconian.
then it will be that the people have not participated in the process. And it's also important to listen to the people. So all those concerns about infrastructure, about rural areas, about small businesses, about the timing and all of that, I believe that when the CBN governor and his team show up at the House of Reps today, they will provide a robust response. However, the Senate has ordered the CBN to extend the cash withdrawal threshold. Well, I don't know whether the Senate of Nigeria can issue such orders, but of course it's within its powers, to make resolutions. And resolutions on executive positions are not necessarily binding, except the CBN, the National Assembly wants to review or amend the CBN Act. But it's just enough that the CBN as an institution has said it's not rigid, it's open to ideas, and we'll see what comes out of that process.
So going back to it, I think our lawmakers are throwing away the baby with the bathwater. I think we're getting too hysterical. And let us go back to the facts. There are facts on ground. Opinions are a dime a dozen. But what are the facts on ground? I'll read the facts to you real quickly. The CBN says there are cash withdrawal limits. But if you must exceed the limits, there's a processing fee of 5% for individuals and 10% for corporates. So they've not said you can't exceed the limits. But if you must exceed the limit, and there's a processing fee of 5%. Let us get that right, because all of this that we're saying, as though the CBN said, okay, there's a limit, you can't exceed it, it's not true. What the CBN said in their statement is that if you are going to exceed the limits, there's a 5% processing fee for individuals and the same. There have been legal back and forth as regards. Femi Falana brought up a case that is a money laundering act that says you can't take more than 5 million. Also, we all know that there are processing fees for certain amounts of money. I think over 2 million or thereabouts. I don't know the threshold now. You pay certain amount of processing fee back to the bank. Why is the CBN doing this? The argument the CBN is making is that we're trying to fight inflation. When you look at inflation over 20%, it's caused mainly because of too much liquidity in the system. And that's why everything they've tried, increased interest rate, has not worked. So they're using various monetary policy tools, redesign of Naira to be able to curb more money in. We all know the 3.2 billion threshold, 2.7 trillion away from the bank vaults and the likes, the fact that the velocity of money has become problematic and all of that. And we saw those things when the money redesign happened, how we had money stocked in people's homes. So all of this is part of the measure. I think the greater argument is this. Where we can hold the CBN and say, oh, not good enough an argument, is after this has been done, after the timeline ends in January, and we don't see inflation numbers come down. Because we forget, and a lot of Nigerians are looking at just this category, they forget that Nigerians are paying higher taxes on inflation. Cost of commodities, I bet you some things you bought at 500,000 naira last year is going close to 1 million naira today. So you're already paying a tax on inflation, which a lot of Nigerians are not talking about. And that's why I say we're throwing the baby away with the bathwater. So if the CBN is putting these measures in place to be able to bring down inflation, bring down that liquidity in the system, I think the true test is, will inflation come down after all of this has been employed? And that time will tell on. That's all on New Zealand. Take a short break. When we return, we'll have Michael Wilson and Ruth Sodiri to give us updates on global and African business. Stay with us.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vault it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business, revolt. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Quick sign up,
is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Feliz Navidad. Amazing. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas. I wanna wish you a Merry Christmas.
Glow wishes you a Merry Christmas.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. For Global Business Update, Michael Wilson joins us now from Cape Town, South Africa. Good morning, Michael.
Morning. Well, given the hawkish stance of the Fed, which I'll come on to, I heard that yesterday. Most Asian stocks have actually fallen. The Hang Seng down over 1%. China is marginally down. If you remember yesterday, I was talking about the economic moves that may well be made and the sort of forecast they're expecting from China. Apparently, the Economic Committee, the Central Economic Work Conference, is working behind closed doors because of COVID. We'll hear about that, what they actually say tomorrow. China retail sales disappointed, actually, fell more than expected, down 5.9% in November. Industrial production only rose by 2.2% as opposed to 3.8% expected. Now, this fall in retail sales and the lack of growth may affect supply chains in the rest of the world, but it will keep the cost of Chinese goods actually down. And this is a big however. Morgan Stanley, my namesake at Morgan Stanley, Michael Wilson, has upgraded the growth in China in 2023 from 5% to 5.4%. So Morgan Stanley, at least, is expecting a big bounce within the Chinese New Year to actually do that. So let's turn our attention then away from the Far East to the United States, because that's really what everybody was waiting for. Yes, they did raise interest rates there, but only by 50 basis points, by 0.5%. But there's a general feeling now that maybe central banks are entering a new phase. The Bank of England expected to raise by 50 basis points today, as is the European Central Bank as well. Investors have called it a bit of a roadblock in front of Santa's sleigh. That's how they're putting it at the moment. I think it was totally expected. I feel as though it was necessary for the Fed to remain hawkish, necessary for Jay Powell to say what he actually said yesterday. And it could be that the peak of interest rates in the United States is, wait for it, 5.1%. And that may happen in 2023. But certainly the Fed is remaining hawkish, and I cannot understand why anybody expected to do anything other than it's done at the moment if it wished to keep the narrative that it set itself. Elon Musk has sold 22 million more shares in Tesla. That comes to about $3.6 billion in total. He's sold $22 billion worth of sales. You remember he bought Twitter for $44 billion. And Tesla shares are now down 55% on what they were a year ago. We're going to turn our attention now to FTX. And whilst Sam Bankman-Fried Freed did not make it from the Bahamas and is actually languishing in jail there now until February the 8th. The new CEO, John Ray of FTX, is charging $1,500 per hour for his expertise. That expertise, he did a similar job at Enron, did a similar job at Nortel as well. The disappointing fact for investors, as far as FTX is concerned, is that he and his team get paid because they are contractors. They get paid well before any of the investors get their money back from the wreckage of FTX. Harry and Meghan, now there's the thing. The Netflix are very, very happy with this. Apparently this documentary debut brought in 81.5 million viewing hours. It's been the top TV streaming in 85 countries. So there you are, Netflix very, very happy about those kind of figures, much happier than many in the British press who've been saying that it's a farrago of lies and deceit. Come on to that if you wish me to. UK inflation cooling very, very slightly, down to 10.75% as opposed to the 11.1% we saw in November. But, and it's a continual reminder this, forgive me for saying it again, but just because inflation is coming down, it does not mean that the cost of living is reducing. It just means that the rate of price increases is slowing. That's all that means. So it's going to be very, very tough here for quite some time. And a rather alarming note from retailers throughout the UK that people are swapping from debit cards to credit cards, which is no good thing as far as the economy is concerned. There are more people getting into debt to fund what they're buying. Oil, finally, stockpiles are the highest since March 2021. Those who have memories which stretch over a couple of years will remember that oil went negative in April 2021, not that long ago. The stockpile is now a year. The stockpile, excluding what we don't know, is about 10.2 million barrels, and expected against the expectation of 3 million barrels. So there's a huge amount there. And the normal things will be brought to play on the oil price, which is still, I think, within that range of between $70 and $80 a barrel. That's the kind of near-term expectation. Still about Chinese demand and what Russia withdrawing from the market will actually do. And given the hawkish comments, as I started this report, really from the Fed, it's felt that the oil price won't do a great deal because the hawkish comments increased the value of the dollar, and oil prices, oil is paid in dollars. So therefore, a slight fall and a recession over 2 years. That's what's basically expected. Where the oil price goes from here, still fairly volatile. That's the global view.
Stockpile numbers is not going to lead of dumping at some point, because if all new OPEC members are increasing production like Nigeria and the likes, and you have the highest stockpile ever, it's not going to lead for some dumping.
I'm sorry, I missed the first bit of your question only because on a final note, Rufai, you'll actually like this. That one of the reasons I'm able, thankfully, to transmit to you, really on a very final note, is because I bought something that actually that stores electricity during the frequent power outages that they call them. Effectively rolling blackouts. They call it load shedding here. And just on a very, very final note, the CEO of Eskom, which is the state electricity company, has actually resigned as of yesterday. So the place is in total chaos, but the electricity blackout. Now, so I do beg your pardon. I missed the first bit of your question. Would you mind repeating?
So what I said was, with this high stockpile, is it not going to lead to dumping of other collections of oil in the international market, since this is the highest stockpile since the last time in April?
I think it will. I'm not altogether sure about the international markets into 2023. Many people are telling me that there will be bargains to be had. There will be productivity buys to buy as well. So I honestly couldn't predict anything from where we are right now. I think that 2022 was clearly a dreadful year, and it may be that the recession which we're expecting in 2023, a global recession, actually forces more companies to the wall. It's really too difficult to predict right now. All I can tell you is that as far as the Fed's concerned, they are desperately keen to say, look, we're not raising at the same rate that we were, but we're still hawkish. And I think that's if you believe that sort of narrative and you believe the fact that inflation needs to be squeezed out by higher interest rates, then that's what the Fed has to say.
Okay, you talked about the Kardashians of success. Netflix being happy with them. Netflix is interested in profit, naturally, but the British press is concerned about the infighting within the royal family within 100 days of Prince Charles as King Charles now. And of course, what is being done to the legacy of Queen Elizabeth II. But today, the Bank of England is likely to announce new interest rates, 50 basis points, or what do you think we should expect?
Okay, let's do the royal family first of all. This piece of material that's being transmitted by Netflix is supposed to be a documentary. Now, we all work in the same business. What a documentary actually does is it tries to get to the truth of what's been going on. This is not a documentary. This is events as seen through the eyes of Harry and Meghan. And whilst it's got a lot of viewing, as you probably expect, even my wife, who enjoys the various UK services and is quite an expert on television consumption, would not watch it for more than a quarter of an hour because it was so clearly a farrago of lies and deceit. Now, again, fine, if that's what you might actually want to watch, no problem with that at all. But it's not a documentary. It's not a documentary by any stretch of the imagination. If you or I had turned that out in our professional career and said it was documentary, we would have had the sack. I've seen people sacked for lesser things than actually take place in this. For example, there is a sequence in it of the fact that the royal couple are supposedly being besieged by Fleet Street photographers. Nonsense. The one shot that shows them was actually one man from the Evening Standard, which, as you know, is a London newspaper, and he was invited there by the press. By the royal press officer to stand there to take photographs. They were not besieged. It's completely wrong. And the other big thing where you see lots of flashing bulbs and all the rest of it, and lots of pressmen scrambling over each other to get the photograph, was at an event that they weren't even there at. So this is not a documentary. Now, royal families are different. Royal families, of course, there will be feuding within a royal family because the whole idea of a royal family is something that was bought as a commodity many, many years ago. Does it do anything to upset Queen Elizabeth II's memories? No, it does not. Absolutely not. Right, Bank of England today, 50 basis points, probably as expected. They will, I would hope that the ECB does exactly the same kind of thing, and it probably will. But I think the message from both of those will echo what's in the Fed, that we have to tame inflation before we can start to think again. So I think 2023 is going to be very difficult indeed.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Now, for business updates across the African continent, Rotus Odiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Yes, so, Nkechi already, in our correspondence in D.C., went through this, but real quick, Biden administration announcing $350 million for digital growth on the African continent with respect to the U.S.-Africa Leadership Summit. And then you also had Visa announcing that they would be spending, I think, about $1 billion on the same matter, assisting SMEs and so on in making digital payments. So they're also putting $1 billion there. This is good, but the amounts are small. I mean, $350 million, you could sink that in a real estate project in a local government area. $1 billion, yeah, we more. And the African nations really need to be selfish at this point to where individual countries are trying to get deals for themselves. The biggest deal we've heard this week, I'm not sure if maybe you've talked about this already, was Tata Group, which just recently acquired Air India. I think the deal is going to be a effective 2024 when they close it. Tata is planning on spending about, I think it's $100 billion on 500 narrow and wide body aircraft. That is a lot of money. I mean, that is a significant, Reuters was reporting this. It is an astounding amount of money. So where they are putting, I mean, the prior record for ordering wide and narrow body craft, I think it was American Airlines. I think they ordered from both Boeing and Airbus, and it was about 460 fleets. What Tata, I mean, and by the way, the World Bank earlier said this week that India is on course to get 100 billion in remittances. That is not a typo. 100 billion in. We really need to focus on what India is doing. They are doing the work, and so I'm just putting this within the context of what has been announced. For the U.S. to announce $350 million, and then Visa is saying $1 billion for digital growth. Look, man, yeah, it's fine, but this is a deal. This is the type of purchase that really, really gets your attention. Anyway, move on from that. Education. The UK, they need teachers, and they've opened up some opportunities for foreigners to actually get jobs. And when you talk about low barriers to entry, they've really made this as straightforward and easy as possible. If we take a look at the countries that are eligible, they announced 9 of them. The Department for Education announced 9 countries. So if we look at the list of countries, we have Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Jamaica. Yes, okay, here they are. So Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Hong Kong, India, Jamaica, Singapore, and the Ukraine. Effective February the 1st, it's the UK Qualified Teacher Status Opportunity. And you don't even have to have a teaching degree. You just have to have a bachelor's degree, and they'll even train you. You can work in the UK without that teacher training for about 4 years, after which then you have to get trained, and then you can. Look, we've talked about this with doctors, right? And I think they even opened up another opportunity for nurses. We've talked about the whole jackpot phenomenon this past year. This is, you're going to see an outflow. Any one of us in this studio could qualify for this and go and teach. You just have to have your qualifications for math, English, and you can get the training later on. Now, what that means for our education sector and the number of teachers that will be available and their pay and so on, that puts that all back under the focus. Now, fuel. The independent petroleum marketers of Nigeria have announced, they said about 350 tankers on their way to a number of NNPC depots in order to reduce the fuel scarcity. So we'll see if that comes to pass. And then Ghana, my goodness. Ghana's latest inflation figures that came out yesterday, 50.3%. There was this is year on year, there was a 79% jump in utilities, food. Ghana is under the cosh right now.
How many year high is there? I think it's like a 50-year high. Because the last time I remember...
21
or 22,
yeah, something like that.
Okay, so that was when this guy was just coming in Kufuor, before he balanced things out as regards the economy, leading up to when this guy left Rawlings, So let's go straight to it. Rotus, the truth is, when you plan properly, you'll get things coming in. The reason why India can get so much money in diaspora remittances, and they have groups like Tata do well, is because over the years, the government has been able to focus on education and have standards and places of excellence across, universities in India. Their tech universities are second to none and all of that, and they can churn out this talent.
Even healthcare.
Travel there. And the reason why you even have good healthcare is because people that went to the diaspora, people like Dr. Devi Shetty, the pioneer open heart surgery in India, came back and they developed from within. That's why you see they were able to bolster the healthcare sector. Even the numbers from the, they have some years that were more than 100 billion in remittances. They pretty much, and guess what? Let me shock you, Rotus, this is just about 2 million people of the top high-end earners, and they're putting money back in remittances, and they're developing the economy. So what can we tap into? We should also use our diaspora commission to be able to do a lot of work with our diaspora, foster remittances, and make the economy conducive to here. Because yes, there's a knock-on effect. We don't have enough talent here, and they're being taken away.
Like the UK
teachers has opened a scheme too. A lot more teachers will go. But how can we incentivize our teachers to stay back home? Because we need that knowledge. And how can we pay them money, Rotus?
Right.
We've not opened up the economy enough. And that's why I say 2023 matters. We shouldn't vote for some shallow-thinking president that thinks about himself alone, that thinks about how to steal money for him and his cronies, and doesn't help open up the economy. So if we open up the economy, over 200 million people spread across 923,000 square kilometers of land, Rosos, I believe Nigeria can be a superpower, and we can truly have 10-15% growth year on year for another 10 years and catch up with countries like
India.
India. You know why? Because all this projected growth of China, a lot of bulk of the growth started in the early 2000s, 2001 when they joined WTO, World Trade Organization, and you can see how China in the space of 21 years have accelerated in growth, and it is possible with Nigeria. Rotos, this country is not a hopeless case. This is the best kept secret in the world, but we just need somebody that has properly screwed on head to make it work, and that's why elections matter in 2023.
Absolutely. Rufai has said it all, but I'll just say that when you were speaking about the teachers, the opening up of teachers to the UK, I thought you were advertising it a bit too much. Like, please don't make it sound too good because...
I don't need to advertise it too.
It's true because even mentioning that, anyone at all without even having a teaching degree can move. Already we're trying to grapple with the brain drain with regards to doctors and nurses and healthcare professionals. We don't need our education sector being affected as well. That was the feeling I had when I saw the announcement made yesterday. But these people know something that perhaps we're not tapping into, like Rufai mentioned, are human resources, the potential of the human resources in Nigeria. Unfortunately, if we do not harvest in that sense what we have, other countries will come in and just take out the best. And what would you be left with?
Number one, Ghana. We discussed Ghana yesterday, and we are back to it again today. Inflation rate in Ghana is 50.3%.
50.3, yeah.
The highest in 21 years, up from 40.4% in October. And the evidence is writ large. The CD, as I pointed out yesterday, is half of its value today than it was last year. Small businesses in Ghana are suffering. There is tension all over the place. Ghana was once praised for its stability. Now, everybody is saying what happened to Ghana. A few months ago, President Nana Akufo-Addo used to boast Ghana without aid. The same Ghana now has had to go to IMF to go and beg, and IMF is, putting down very stringent conditions. Some people call them conditionalities. And so the question for me is, what lessons can other African countries learn from Ghana? It's not enough for us, to just sit down and say, oh, look at what is happening to them in Ghana. Can we learn certain lessons from there? But clearly, this will have political implications. The next general elections in Ghana is in 2 years' time, in 2024. And the MPP may find itself, that's the ruling, National Patriotic Party, may find itself getting a verdict from the people. As for the visa thing, yes, it's good. Africa is a very big market. Digital transformation promised by the Americans, all of that is good. But the main emphasis there is payments, is the partnership, that President Biden was talking about. And it's not just visa. A number of other countries also signed agreements with African countries. Yesterday, being the day for business forum discussions. As for the brain drain, you recall that when the UK, the Conference of Business Industry, CBI, when they had their conference last month, they were saying that the UK needs immigrants to come and work. The government was opposed to it, but Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, said, well, even if we're going to bring people, it will be people with skills in the area of artificial intelligence and areas of need, not to bring, many workers to come and reverse the gains of Brexit. So here we are. Nigeria is one of those countries included. Hong Kong is there. They're looking for teachers. We are likely to have brain drain.
Oh, yes.
More teachers going to the UK.
Yes.
But in any case, that reminds us of the need to provide a better enabling environment here so that Nigerians can be, at least with a sense of patriotism, say, we will not, what's that phrase again?
Jackpot.
Yeah, we will not leave our country. We would help to stay here and build this country together.
Amen to that.
Amen to that.
I hope that happens.
Thank you, Rotus.
Thank you so much.
It's time now for a short break on the morning show. When we return, we'll have a Rise News analyst, Emmanuel Efeni, join us to review top stories in today's newspapers. Stay with us.
As you adjust to the new realities for operating your business and engaging with your customers, let us help you transform your business into a digital powerhouse capable of adapting and taking advantage of today's opportunities. With our best-in-class array of digital solutions, you can conduct your business, receive payments from your customers, and perform transactions quickly, safely, and conveniently, because we've got you covered with the right people, technology, and service offerings. Contact us today and let us take your business to its zenith. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just streaming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Patricia, crypto made easy.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash trapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
Patricia, crypto made easy.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to review some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Arise News analyst Emmanuel Efeni. Good morning, Emmanuel.
Good morning, Ruben. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning.
Now, let's start the review with this day, Nigeria's newspaper of record. The lead story, Naiti, 619.7 million barrels of crude oil valued at 16.25 trillion naira lost to theft, sabotage, in 12 years. Calls for special panel on Glencore scandal indicting Nigerian officials. Yes, the sad news about how we run our oil business and our commonwealth, NATI, the Nigerian Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, released a report yesterday. And this report, covering between 2009, when NATI started keeping records of this, and 2020, Nigeria has lost this amount of crude oil with a value of 16.25 trillion naira through theft and sabotage, according to the report. Imagine what this amount of money could have done for the country. But it's not enough for us to bemoan this disaster. Our persons being brought to book. The recent initiative to curb oil theft, the arrest made. Who are the persons behind this? A report some days ago said if those behind this oil theft are named, Nigerians will be shocked to their bone marrows. We want to know those who are behind this. And until that is done, well, it's like we're not serious about curbing oil theft, because somehow all those who collude before long will find a way around this, unless persons are arrested, tried, and shamed before one and all. Now, the Guardian newspaper, 80 billion USSD debts weaken digital channels as new Naira notes arrive. Visit your bank today for redesign notes. CBN urges Nigerians. FASWA, Nigerians should join global trend. Pay attention to real challenges. Let e-payment evolve naturally, says Yusuf. Our pull to engage CBN on negative impacts of policy on agents. That's the Association of POS Operators. Low smartphone penetration may hinder service. Christ urges revocation of draconian policy. Yes, of course, one of the issues that may also bedevil this quest to spread e-payment is the unresolved issue of unstructured supplementary service data between the banks and the telecoms company. There's been a lot of back and forth on this, and who is owing what, and the telcos threatening to cut off banks who use these services. We hope this will be resolved so that the ordinary Nigerians don't suffer in the face of the dispute between banks and these telcos. Now, the Punch newspaper, banks reconfigure ATMs, new Naira enter circulation today. Bank officials complain of small allocations from CBN. Emefiele to appear before reps over withdrawal limits. Yes, Rufai, you explained what this limit and the implication if you go above the limit. Not that you cannot go above the limit. Now, the Nation newspaper, huge crowd received Tinubu in Mina. Yes, hiccups in PVC distribution. Prospective voters, besiege centers, we are addressing challenges. And if we look at the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, worrisome development, you will see. Thousands of northerners selling their PVCs for about 2,000 Naira. That's Northern Elders Forum making this allegation. Real reasons politicians are buying PVCs. Party leaders speak. if persons are selling their cards, of course, politicians have weaponized poverty. So 2,000 naira is a big deal for the poor. But the politicians who initiate this buying are the ones who should be apprehended and brought to book. It's not enough, again, to just make these allegations. The law enforcement agencies should swing into action and apprehend those behind the buying of voters' card. The Vanguard newspaper, Buhari, I have done my best. Afenia, Fere, or Haneze, others differ. Buhari has done well. APC campaign, his best, not good enough. SDP, ADC, you failed. Nigerians worse off in 7.5 years. Middle Belt Forum tells Buhari, president's best is abysmal failure. Pandef is unfortunate. This is Buhari's best for Nigerians. Or Haneze is an honest admission of failure. Afenifere, Buhari's best has left Nigeria worse than he met it. Labour Party. Well, I think this speaks for itself. The president saying he has done his best, but is his best good enough? That's the question Nigerians will be answering along the way. Are they better off now than in 2015 when President Muhammadu Buhari took over with the change mantra, the economy, security, and of course anti-corruption? On all fronts, the jury is out, but the president is insisting, I have done my best. Now the foreign newspapers quickly, the Guardian newspaper, the Guardian of London, scathing report condemns police for victim blaming in rape cases. While the Daily Telegraph, damage of nurses strike will get worse. Longer workers affecting end-of-life care, and likely in January, hospital chiefs are warning. Yes, the nurses will be stepping out today of the hospitals. And of course, the crisis in the NHS will be very visible and painful. Now, the Wall Street Journal, repayment of pandemic loans ill-timed for many businesses. Yes, many small businesses that receive federal pandemic loans are now seeing the bills come due, and they are saying the timing is wrong. Yes, the disaster loan helps small businesses to survive and avoid layoff, but the payment is due. And it is coming at a time these businesses are seeing steeper decline in business than during the pandemic. What an irony. And they're saying this is wrong timing. Ruben Rufai and Ayo.
Okay, first let me start with the story about the Northern Elders Forum, saying that people are collecting PVCs from people. They tell them they would use it for poverty alleviation and return the cards later, and then they don't return them. Yes, you are right. Those politicians who are involved in that scam, they need to be identified and they need to be sanctioned, because vote buying or voter suppression, which is the issue in this particular case, they collect your vote, your PVC, and they make it impossible for you to be able to vote. I agree with you, they should be identified and sanctioned under the law. But even more importantly is that these politicians who go to collect PVCs and hold them, they are doing so because of the ignorance of the people. Many of these poor people, they don't know better, any better. So it's important that the innocent political parties, if there are any, and the INEC Department of Voter Education will still need to do a lot more in terms of voter education, and perhaps groups like the Northern Elders Forum in the northern part of the country, because the point being made by Dr. Akim Baba Ahmed, is that, look, you know, whereas in other parts of the country, people have been encouraged to vote, not enough is being done in parts of the north to ensure that people are not manipulated. And then, of course, the other point to be made has to do with the fact that you can't use another person's PVC, which is what INEC has said repeatedly.
Yes.
The chairman has said it. Spokespersons for INEC have also said it. And that, again, puts the onus on INEC to make sure that he's ready with his BVAS, with his technological measures and all of that, to make sure that people do not go on election day and they use other people's voters' cards. Because this election of 2023, as we've repeatedly said on this program, is an election like no other, where the Nigerian people must be allowed to speak and choose freely without intimidation and without any fascism from any direction, because fascists are trying to take over the space, and their methods we've seen, are multiple and manifold. Now, as for NATI, yes, it's good that NATI is giving us this figure. NATI started, monitoring, that extractive industry in terms of transparency in 2009. And look at the amount of money that has been lost to theft. This is money that could have been used for development purposes. But there are other issues there. NATI is talking about partnership with other stakeholders, which was the point also that had been made on this program. That it's not just one unit. There will be other stakeholders, security, architecture, and all of that. But our argument is that should be sustained. The second point that has also been made is the need for the diversification of oil revenue, which is something we've always talked about. But in recent times, the CBN has been talking about, non-oil revenue improvement in that regard. But it's important, that those measures that we have seen working, helping to increase production, by the various multinationals, that is sustained. Otherwise, we'll just go back, we'll take 2 steps forward and take 4 steps forward. It's called the recursive cycle at the heart of the Nigerian dilemma. We should move away from that.
All right, thank you very much. We have little time to go, but just to mention as part of our voter education that we've, the PVC, you can collect your PVC right from Monday. So please go ahead, collect it. At the end of the day, these are also ways, if you neglect to complete your cycle and your own responsibility, you're leaving gaps for others to leverage for, for corruption and to steal your vote, as it were.
Well, we'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking to David Undenyi, an investigative journalist, and Agba Jalingo, a Nigerian journalist and activist. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Emergencies happen when you least expect them to. It gets worse when you are cash trapped. No need to despair. First Advance has you covered. You can get that urgent cash right now on First Advance. With First Advance, salary earners can get up to 50% of their salary. No hassles. As long as you earn a monthly salary and your salary account has been active for at least 2 months. It doesn't matter if you run a salary account with First Bank or any other bank. Just dial *894*11# or simply dial *894# on your mobile phone. What's more, when you open a First Bank salary account, you can enjoy 0 charges and free debit card issuance. Download the First mobile app on Play Store or App Store today. Log in to experience First Bank digital banking. Select Loans, select First Advance, and follow the prompts to receive your loan. Don't let that urgent need get the best of you. Get First Advance now. It's as simple as dialing *894*11#. First Advance. Fast, convenient, secure. You first. First Bank.
Patricia, crypto made easy.
Lagos has amassed more wealth than any other state in the country to be the most comfortable city to live in.
Now Lagos is earning 51 billion naira every month.
But even with all that money, this is the Lagos you have now. Bad roads filled with potholes, poor drainage system resulting in floods during rainy season, incessant traffic congestions, increased environmental pollution, poor healthcare system, large-scale child begging, poor security and increased crime rate, impunity of state government officials, lack of clean drinking water, poor transportation system. After years of empty promises, Lagos is now rated as the second worst city to live in the world. How long shall we continue like this? Lagos is not working. We want our Lagos back. Vote Dr. Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jandor as governor of Lagos State. Chafueko, fight for Lagos.
PDP, power to the people.
A reflection of the Nigerian never say die spirit. They never stay down. You're always thinking of how to improve. You're always thinking of how to move forward. My name is Emmanuel Ahimieho. I've been a civil engineer for 18 years. I'm the project manager of Obadana Kaba Road. The Obadana Kaba Road is 43 kilometers built completely of concrete pavement. We started work on December 2016. I remember when we came here, it was virtually lifeless. We're building a road that we know will need very minimal maintenance. It's a road that we don't need to rush back to in 5 years, trying to carry out major maintenance work. We don't need to import anything that we need on the road. They are all locally available materials. All the cement we use on this road is from Dangote Cement Factory, which is the largest cement factory in Africa. The sand is from the communities, so people from the community, they end up becoming suppliers. Imagine supplying sand for a 43-kilometer road. It's a lot of money. There are things I've learned from building this concrete road that I never knew 10 years ago. And to be able to lead those people to achieve something worthwhile, something that is of value to them, to the community, to people who have never met us. And I am positive that the road will outlast most of the people who are building the road. Along this route, we have up to 12 communities. People have the confidence to open shops. Why? Because, someone is going through the road, they sell their things, they sell their goods. That is more money for them. We have a number of eateries now, and you want to buy foods along the road, you get fresh food, not food that are preserved. No, you get fresh food. So it is good for us, and it's good for the community too. The road is a lot more safer now for everybody, including Halima, including other travelers. So they have better road, lesser crime, shorter journey times, so a lot of advantages. I've had people who go through the roads and they stop to just say, well done. We are proud of what is happening here. We're happy that this is going on in Nigeria in our time. We can see it. They are proud of it. I think it has brought life back to the communities. I feel very proud, extremely proud being a part of this project.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. The All Progressives Congress Presidential Campaign Council's Director of Media and Publicity, Mr. Bayo Ononuga, and Advisor Media and Strategic Communication, Mr. Dele Alake, have attempted to silence independent media, as well as bully, intimidate the free media ahead of the 2023 general elections. The All Progressive Congress, during its opposition years, utilized the media to tackle the past Goodluck Jonathan administration and fiercely participated in media discourse, but is now at war with the media as he tries to shield his presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, from scrutiny, even though he clearly has all kinds of questions to answer. The question now is, what has changed in their relationship with the media, and why have they all of a sudden resorted to labeling, blackmail, and branding everything that will not bow to their party's narratives as fake news? Joining us now to discuss this is David Undeyin, an investigative journalist, and Agba Jalingo, a Nigerian journalist and activist. Gentlemen, welcome to the morning show.
Thank you.
Well, the introduction, yes, thank you. The introduction already says it all. This ongoing attack on independent media by the APC Presidential Campaign Council, specifically Mr. Dele Alake and Mr. Bayo Ononuga, although they claim to be speaking on behalf of everybody within that party. Let me start with you, David Undeyin, and then Agba Jalingo will also state his observations. David? Hello, David, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Please go ahead.
Right. So I've had this conversation a number of times with people who are in and around the APC presidential campaign regarding why they have such a combative posture toward all forms of independent media, being that in 2014 and 2015, when they were making a successful bid for power as an opposition party at the time, they leveraged very heavily on these very spaces to achieve what they achieved in 2015, which was unseating an incumbent president for the first time in Nigeria's history. And I think we all agreed to an extent that maybe, to all intents and purposes, that was a good thing. That was a sign that democracy was being deepened. The fact that an opposition party was able to essentially carry out a guerrilla media campaign, and nobody went to jail for it. I personally think that a lot of ethical lines were crossed, but nobody really got into trouble for it. The idea at the time was that, well, there's press freedom in Nigeria. The Nigerian government isn't going to come down on you for practicing journalism, however way you practice it. So it's an open sky. Everyone can do as they please, as long as they're not, outrightly breaking the law. And I thought that was a good thing. So why is it that now, when the exact same thing is taking place, these people feel so threatened? And I've put this question to several people in and around the campaign, and I'm yet to get a satisfactory answer. The only indication that I get from people that I've had this conversation with is that they are simply frightened of having what they did in 2014 and 2015 done to them. And essentially, this all boils down to a fear of losing power. Essentially, if you have a free and independent media that is reporting on stories that you don't want to be reported, or that is reporting them in a way that you don't want them to be reported, then it somehow threatens your base. So essentially, this all comes down to the basic assumption on the part of the APC itself and the people from the APC campaign themselves that they don't believe that they have actually done enough to deserve re-election. That the incumbent party is not confident in its own record. So it feels as if the only way that it can win this conversation and win the election in 2023 is by bullying everyone in its way and doing things that even the past administration didn't do when these guys were in opposition. And that's where I have a serious problem, because this wasn't that long ago. This was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. We all witnessed what was done in 2014 and 2015. I worked in the marketing industry at the time, so I had a front row seat to see what was done in media, in advertising, in PR, in experiential marketing, all sorts of things that were done by the then opposition. I mean, at the time, I remember we had, to the extent of there being satirical TV shows, and cartoon shows, puppet shows, ridiculing the then president. Nobody got into trouble for that. There was no furious press release coming out from the presidency or from the PDP campaign then having a go at anyone for essentially practicing some form of independent journalism. Everybody was free to do what they wanted to do. I think we all agreed that this was some kind of expression of the deepening of democracy. I know you yourself were actually part of that administration at the time. And as I recall, even though you had a series of, backs and forths with the then opposition, it never got to the point of actually telling them, stop doing your job, or you trying to dictate to them how they should do their job. Because at the end of the day, journalism is a very subjective thing. People practice journalism in the way that they see fit. There is no universal standard for what constitutes journalism. So I find it very funny. And I think it's also a self-indictment on the part of the APC's presidential campaign that they feel that the existence of independent media that is not under their control, and the desire of such media platforms to simply ask questions of their candidates somehow is a threat to them, that they have to come out with all this fire and fury, sending out myriad statements, leveraging all their media assets, newspapers, TV stations, to pump out this narrative that some set of people are somehow having a go at our candidates for some nefarious reasons or something. Meanwhile, all anyone wants to know is, can your candidate please come and present himself to the people that he intends to govern, that he wants to govern? Can he answer these questions? Because at the end of the day, your candidate is not applying to become the president of the APC or to become the president of Dele Alake and Bayo Onanuga. Your president is applying to become the president of Nigeria, which means everyone in Nigeria, including those of us having this conversation. So if he's going to be our president, whether or not we even vote for him, assuming he wins the election, then that means that we have every right to ask certain questions. That means we have every right to demand, not ask, demand that he presents himself to answer questions. He presents himself for scrutiny. That's a normal thing. So I think it's only in Nigeria that I've seen it where a job seeker or people speaking on behalf of a job seeker are angry that the employers are asking the job seeker to come for an interview.
Agbajalingo, over to you.
Well, I want to add to what David said by saying that even in 2019, while we were preparing for the presidential elections, I remember very vividly on one of the TV stations here where Mr. Dele Alake also mentioned that President Buhari then was not going to participate in the presidential debate. And when I saw him repeating it the second time, I started to wonder at what point Mr. Dele, whether he was speaking as a journalist or because I know that he's a competitor in this industry. On paper, it is assumed that he's the owner of one of the sister stations. And for a competitor to sit down and begin to make those kind of assertions that he made me very, 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 very worried. And Nigerians that are still pandering to that kind of bad behavior are only feathering the nest of birds that will soon begin to haunt us. These are very senior journalists and very senior colleagues in this industry that somebody would have expected that naturally they will find a middle ground and make the environment more conducive for the free press to thrive in. On occasions like this, I saw the last time that Trump decided to drive a reporter out of the White House. And the CNN chose to go to court. While they were in court, even Fox that was supporting Trump had to go join CNN in court to say, no, sir, we are not going to allow you to encroach into our turf. This is the media. There have been reporters in the White House before all of us were born, including you, Trump. So we will not allow you to encroach into our turf. That is the kind of attitude that I was expecting from people like Dele Alake and Bayo. Not to see respected people like this working very assiduously to see how they will continue to suffocate the media space. It is rather very, very disappointing. I am a victim of this kind of attitude where people feel that the press should not talk. So every time I get very emotional and tingly when people begin to make this kind of efforts. Two judges in England this year gave a judgment in court saying that if our freedom of speech includes only saying nice things, then there is no need for it. As a matter of fact, they said that the freedom of speech includes insulting the other person. And if you are not angry, if you are not happy about it, you find your way to the court, not to try to suffocate people and gag people from talking. If we allow this kind of attitude, then people like us will be bundled up again one of these days and thrown in one place that will be forgotten in Cross River State. I think that the media, in whatever shade, whether you like what they are doing or not, should be allowed to operate without any kind of manacles that we are seeing some people try to throw at us 20-something years after we got democracy. These people have also been victims of this kind of practice in the past. And for them to come up at this point to begin to pander to sentiments that we thought we had left behind over 2 decades ago is not a good example for those of us who are coming up on the job. These are examples, and I think that this bad behavior should stop. And very, very soon too.
All right, thank you, Agba and David. And you've used terms that I think we have to zero in terms of bad behavior and people getting used to or pandering to this bad behavior. And thank you, Agba, for pointing to the fact that you yourself have been a victim of this, where you were victimized for a publication you had made, and you were actually you were taken in, and for over about 197 days you were away.
6 months.
6 months you were away. Now, I'd like you to speak to that, especially as with regards to the effect of these kinds of behavior, which some might term as draconian against, and even illegal against journalists when things that don't seem very pleasant are printed or are published, and the effect on the democratic process of Nigeria. For David, I'd like you to speak to, still on bad behavior, it seems like a number of Nigerians have gotten used to it. Because if you look at some feedback online, you see some people actually defending the actions of the APC and the candidates as well as spokespersons as to, oh, they don't have to present themselves, why do they need to present themselves, they are being victimized and so on. What is the importance of the media holding power to, holding power to authority, holding power to scrutiny, and asking them to present themselves to respond to questions? I'll start with you.
Okay. Well, I think it's because Nigerians have continued to reward this kind of attitude since 1999. Like, if you go down memory lane, in 1999, President Obasanjo refused to attend presidential debates. He eventually won the election. 2003, the same thing happened. He said he wasn't going to debate. He won the election. President Jonathan also avoided one of the debates in preference for another. He also won the election. And Buhari came again and also decided that he wasn't going to participate in the campaigns. He won the elections. Maybe they are seeing it as a pattern for them that we ignore them. That is not how to win elections. If you have enough money to share for people, they will always go to the booth and vote for you. But I think we need to begin to look at the morality, the suitability, and of a political debate. Since the 1960 famous debate between Nixon and JF Kennedy, till today, I think that has, in some countries, it has even been given legislative backing for people to make sure that whoever is asking for that top job comes to face the employers to ask them questions. And so whoever is still working against this kind of practice in Nigeria, I think should be considered as an enemy of democracy. Because if that is the case elsewhere, then Trump would have arrested everybody in CNN and locked them up because of the way they were dogging after his heels every other morning. The worst he could do, okay, he kept calling them fake news until he left power. But for people who I sincerely consider as very respected members of this particular industry to do this, I personally feel offended. Because I saw even journalists in Cross River, when I was arrested, the NUJ in Cross River, as a matter of fact, wrote a statement and said, I am not a journalist. They wrote a statement and said, Agba Jalingo is not a journalist until the National Secretariat had to interfere. And we have this kind of colleagues in every newsroom, in every boardroom of every media organizations, trying to suffocate creativity, trying to suffocate free speech. And we should stop tolerating this kind of attitude. Nigerians should stop continuing to feed this kind of attitude in this country. If we continue like this, both democracy and the media is not going to grow. People do not have any obligation to say nice things to you. People do not have any obligation to say what you like, particularly when they are sitting on a microphone. If there's anything they are saying that you don't like, the courts are there for you to go and report them. And I think that the courts have been doing quite well. It was a judge that sent me out of jail when some people felt what I was saying wasn't sounding nice to them. What happened to the courts? I am surprised to see editors or what do I call them? Big men in another media organization sitting down and trying to determine who sits on the other microphone to speak. For me, it's very, very embarrassing and quite very, very offensive. And that is an attitude that we should rise up en masse and work against, so that young people who want to come into the profession can continue to have the courage and the audacity to continue to open up what is wrong with society. I feel personally offended about this development, and I can't help but say it in this manner. Thanks. David?
The only thing that I'll add to what Agba has said, because he has pretty much said it all, but what I'll just add to that is that the reason it seems as if a number of Nigerians don't really understand the severity of the situation and how dangerous it is for journalists, supposed journalists who are linked to power, who are linked to a ruling entity, coming out with these sorts of pronouncements and this sort of posture. And the reason that a number of Nigerians don't seem to understand the danger here is that you have to bear in mind that democracy in Nigeria really is still quite young. Democracy came back in 1999, so we're about 23 years into our latest democratic iteration in Nigeria. So basically, somebody who is 50 years old in Nigeria statistically has lived more of his life under a military dictatorship than under a democracy. So what would that person actually know about democracy? So I believe part of this, there's also a demographic issue involved. The older generation, specifically from Gen X and above, genuinely doesn't really understand, by and large, the importance of, as Agba said, being able to say things whether or not somebody else likes it. Because the norm under the military administrations, the successive military administration, starting from Yakubu Gowon through Murtala Mohammed, then Olusegun Obasanjo, Muhammadu Buhari, Ibrahim Babangida, Sani Abacha especially, the norm throughout all these administrations was that if, as a journalist or as an editor, as a media practitioner, you said or you broadcast anything the government didn't like, something would happen to you. So it was under those administrations that we had journalists receiving letter bombs and dying. It was under those administrations that we had armed men storming into newsrooms and pointing guns at journalists and seizing newspapers and all sorts of crazy things like that. So that's what a lot of Nigerians have been used to. So, and then you also have to bear in mind that there wasn't actually a successful anti-dictatorship struggle in Nigeria. There wasn't actually a successful pro-democracy struggle in Nigeria. It just so happened that Abacha died, which we didn't really have anything to do with. So the return of democracy was almost like an accidental thing. So that consciousness of what democracy is and the fact that everyone is entitled to certain freedoms, entitled, not privileged, entitled, that these are constitutional, basic human and constitutional rights that everyone has. I don't think that understanding has really percolated through a lot of the older generation. Maybe a lot of those born after 1999 are more likely, because of exposure to the internet and the world outside, are more likely to understand the importance of free speech and things like that. But a lot of the older generation who was raised in a time when platforms like Arise TV weren't even allowed to exist, because the private sector wasn't even allowed to take part in broadcasting, for example. To those people, I guess having an authoritarian posturing by people in power is not that alarming because they are already used to it. But to people like us who have spent most of our lives statistically under the democratic dispensation, and we can see very clearly the sort of backsliding that Nigeria has been recording, especially over the past 7 years, where if you check the global press freedom ranking, between 2015 and now, Nigeria has slipped almost 20 places, right? So Nigeria is now behind, some, free speech luminaries like Burkina Faso and Myanmar. That's where Nigeria is right now. So for those of us who can see very clearly that we're regressing to, what we think of as the bad old days, we are alarmed by it, and that's why we are raising the alarm. Not everybody has that same mindset, though, which is unfortunate. But I think that's a demographic issue. And I think I also think that, statistically, Nigeria, something like 60% of Nigeria's population is under the age of 35. So I think this is a problem that will be solved by time.
Okay, David, you said something that we just, slipped into democracy. wouldn't some Nadeko people, claw back at you and say,
I immediately had the
that is no, it's because of the work people like Nadeko and some other people that actually fought, and died, for that democracy, and their memories live on. But let us put the issues on the front burner. What are these issues that certain people don't want to hear? You did extensive work on the drug issue. Can you talk to us about that? The certificate issue, Chicago University, you even talked about a case that Enahoro Eba will be filing, at the Abuja court, which we know that he has filed. Tell us all of those issues. And, because all these issues people say speak to characters, tell us about all those investigative work you did do and you did put out there. And for you, Agba, I want you to speak through the connivance of other media because of their own gains in all of this matter. The fact that, as you in your own case, some people came out, probably they were coward or probably they were given some pecuniary, gains, came out to say that you're not a journalist. The fact that it is the same other media journalists in Nigeria that are so quick to throw other journalists under the bus because of what they're going to gain, and the blue-on-blue fight, sort of to use that word, continues. So David, you start first, and Agba, I want you to speak through that.
So there are basically two stories in one here. The first is a story about the drug trafficking indictments that the candidates of the All Progressives Congress had in 1993. And as I've appeared on this show before to speak about this case, anyone who hasn't read the case files can easily Google them and find them. They are everywhere now. These case files have been sourced from the U.S. District Courts of Eastern District of Illinois, the Northern District of Illinois Eastern Division. And essentially, you have this fellow, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who was identified by IRS Investigative Special Agent Moss as a bagman, that's a money launderer, working on behalf of a drug ring that was trafficking heroin in Chicago. And basically, this indictment, which has been on public record since 1993, for whatever reason, this story hasn't properly been told the way it was meant to be told. It's sort of become like a rumored kind of thing. So in the lead up to this election, I decided that I wanted to take this on. That you can't have a story potentially about somebody who has a chance of becoming Nigeria's next president being linked to drug trafficking, and it's just relegated to the realm of like social media rumors and stuff you see on blog pages on Instagram and things like that. So I dug into it, and the information it's visible to the blind and audible to the deaf, right? That this fellow was involved in drug trafficking. And this is not an allegation. This is not a claim. This is a documented fact, right? There are legal documents backing this up, right? This guy forfeited $460,000 of funds that were, I quote, proceeds of narcotics trafficking. This is on record. So I don't know, possibly because it's been 29 years since this thing happened, and as we tend to do in Nigeria, we tend to think that justice has an expiry date. So because this thing happened 29 years ago and he has been able to get away with it, he became a governor, he governed for 2 terms, has been a political operator, he was elected as a senator in 1992 as well. So basically he got away with it all the time. So the posturing from the camp seems to be that, well, this is already dead and buried, so why are you resurrecting this now? So why are you asking this question? And I think that's a ridiculous position to take because, as I've said earlier, Bola Tinubu is not applying to be president of Lagos or president of APC or president of Dele Alake and Bayo Onanuga. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is applying to be my president too. And your president, everybody's president who carries a Nigerian passport. So, of course, he has to answer this question that were you or were you not linked with drug trafficking? And if you claim that you weren't, well, here's the evidence, unimpeachable evidence that you were. So what do you have to say for that? Obviously, he doesn't want to answer that question. He doesn't want to present himself for that kind of type of question because obviously he doesn't have anything with which to defend himself. He's as guilty as sin. That's very obvious. And then the second story, which I did, which was a separate story, but also linked to that, was a story about perjury. Now, on his INEC EC9 affidavit, he made several claims. He claimed that the date of birth he claimed on his INEC EC9 was a different date of birth to that which he has used in other places. So essentially what happened was the lawyer that you mentioned, Mike Enahoro Eba, he actually took INEC to court earlier in the year, I think in August, when INEC refused to make Bola Ahmed Tinubu's EC9 form public, and he won the case. INEC released the EC9 form to him. So then he contacted a law firm in Chicago, Leahy, Eisenberg, and Franco, to essentially investigate some of these claims that were made by Bola Ahmed Tinubu about his history in the US. So subpoenas were sent to Chicago State University, Richard Daley College, Deloitte, where he claimed to have worked, and Anderson Tax, because he claimed to have worked at Arthur Anderson at some point too. And the results that came back from these institutions prove that the claims he made on his INEC EC9, and some of the documents submitted on his INEC EC9, were completely false. So, for example, the subpoena that went out to Chicago State University, the lawyer asked for all records regarding Bola Ahmed Tinubu that Chicago State University had, and they responded with the records he used to gain admission to Chicago State University, where he stated that he went to a secondary school called Government College Lagos, and he graduated in 1970. Well, it just so happens that Government College Lagos started in 1974. So clearly he couldn't have graduated in 1970 because it didn't exist. The certificate, the degree certificate that was provided by the university, which was an exact reprint of the original certificate that was issued to a certain Bola A. Tinubu in 1979, was a completely different document to that which is submitted to INEC. Different font, different wording, different signatures, and different dates. And then what, in my opinion, the craziest thing of all was that a very simple, some very 5-minute internet research revealed that this document that he submitted to INEC was sourced from an online forgery service called diplomamakers.com. So literally, if you go to the Pinterest the repository of this website, diplomamakers.com, you will literally see a template for a Chicago State University fake degree certificate that is identical to what he submitted to INEC. The same grammatical errors on that certificate were what he submitted to INEC. So essentially, this guy or somebody working for him went to a service that produces fake certificates, diploma-makers.com, right? Got a fake certificate from there and submitted it to INEC. So the question is why? The answer to that may be answered by some of the other records that were obtained from Chicago State University. Now, one of the records that was obtained was a transcript from Richard Daley College, which was used to gain admission. And on that transcript, it was stated that the person known as Bola A. Tinubu that was given admission to Chicago State University, the sex of that person was female. So which essentially means that the person parading himself as Bola Ahmed Tinubu today and the person who got admission to Chicago State University as Bola A. Tinubu are in fact not the same person. That person also claimed to have a different nationality. That person claimed to be Black American. Tinubu on his INEC EC9 claimed that he has no nationality except Nigerian. So there are so many questions to answer. There's the basic issue of perjury, which, by the way, is a criminal offense. You can go to jail for that. There's the issue of falsification of documents, forgery. There's the issue of identity theft. There's the issue of non-declaration of supplementary nationality. And then there's the issue of the false claims of having gone to Government College Lagos, which didn't exist when he came to graduate. And just to quickly close on this, the subpoena that went out to Deloitte, the response that came back simply said, we do not know this person. This person has never worked for us. We have no record here. So if you recall, and let me just quickly close with this, his most recent media appearance, where he was asked, how did you make your money? All of a sudden, he made no reference to Deloitte this time around, which is a story he has been shopping around for decades.
Okay,
These are questions.
All right, David, thank you so much for putting the issues out there, because we deal with the issues. And I'm sure his campaign council will react to all of this that you've put down. They're going to make their own robust reaction as right of reply. Agba, the question I asked you.
Yeah, in the press today, I think there's a hunting expedition. There are some people who feel like the adjutants and the superintendents of the industry. and once you are not bowing to their line, you are either considered not to be a journalist or you are considered incompetent because they feel that they are the foundation of this particular profession in Nigeria. But that is expected because it's not only happening in journalism, it's part of the professional politics that you face in every office out there. People don't just like some others when they are beginning to make headlines or getting some popularity that they don't have. They come after you and begin to question your credibility, not because they think that what you are doing is wrong, but just deliberately because they want to pull you down. It is not a new thing. Even from the time of Jesus, they have to look for one of you. It is the journalists that those who are looking for you will use to come after you. Most of the people that they have used to come and arrest me were my colleagues. They're the first persons that they will reach out to and ask them when you think he can be home, when you think he can be in the newsroom, when you think he can be on his laptop. If it's not people as close to you like that, they will not be able to get you. But on the whole, I think that as the debate about professionalizing this job goes on, it is important that colleagues begin to close ranks. Most of the media organizations in Nigeria are owned by politicians. And if those of us who are professionals who work for them are also unable to stick ourselves together and defend ourselves as well as the profession, ultimately, the politicians will just turn us to their tools, use us for as much as they want, and then when we get old, we walk out of the newsroom and return home empty and wretched while they continue stealing the resources of the country and sending their own children overseas. We must see a need to develop our profession, defend ourselves, defend the newsrooms, not just the interests of the politicians. And until we do that, the profession will continue to face this kind of onslaught that is facing from the politicians. They will steal money, go and buy the cameras and the printers and put them together, then bring us and use us as tools. When they are tired of us, they push us away because they know they can always use us against ourselves. But that is a point of reflection for us moving forward.
All right, Dr. Matthew.
Okay, there's a red herring that is being bandied around in a very emotional and unintelligent manner, which is that journalists must not go near politics, or that journalists, there's something called that journalist who must not have any political beliefs or political choices. Is that really the case? Because if you look in the US, you have a long list of journalists who have been in politics and who are in journalism, or who have been in journalism who have gone into politics. And you have a long list also in India, you know. But here you hear people who say, oh, that journalist is biased. That journalist is a member of so party. Can we possibly have that mongrel that is a journalist that has no idea of politics? Let me start with you, David.
As you've rightfully described it, that's a red herring. Because first of all, if we're being truthful, there's no such thing as a human being that doesn't have a political preference or some sort of beliefs or ideals that they adhere to. No human being is an abstraction. So the fact of being a journalist doesn't somehow turn someone into this apolitical abstraction whose job is just to robotically show this mythical thing called both sides of the story. That's not how real life works. Everybody has a preference. As you rightfully referenced, in the US, for example, journalists in the US actually openly state their political preferences. So you will know, for example, that a journalist who works at MSNBC or at CNN, there's a 99% probability that you're never going to see that journalist working for Fox News later on. You know why? In the UK, a journalist that works for ITN, you're probably never going to see them working for GB News. You know why? Like, these things are very clearly stated, and I think that's actually honest, right? People should actually know where you stand. So what I think is very, very hypocritical, and I would actually use the word disgusting, is when people who not only have a political preference, but actually hold political office, you know, within political campaign structures. People like Bayo Ononuga, who, you know, is a media practitioner. He owns a publishing house, a newspaper. He's also a journalist, supposedly a senior journalist. And he actually has a position, an official position in the APC Presidential Campaign Committee, you know. And this person will then come out and say, this other journalist is politically biased. This other journalist has expressed a political preference or has expressed a public opinion. Therefore, this journalist's position isn't valid. This journalist's work as a whole isn't valid because he has expressed some sort of position on something. Meanwhile, his own work is supposed to remain valid, right? No one is going to come out and say that PM News is not a valid publication because it happens to be co-founded and run by Bayo Onanuga. No one is going to say that. It's still a journalistic publication, like it or not. But somehow these standards only work in one direction. They don't work both ways. So I'm going to set these arbitrary standards, which are based on absolutely nothing for you, right? And I'm going to attempt to sort of set the narrative for you and fix these parameters within which you can operate in. Nobody gave me that power. Like, there was no meeting where it was decided that I am the gatekeeper. I'm the one who gets to make these decisions for anybody. I've just woken up on some side of my bed and arrogated this power to myself, and I've opened my mouth and I've started making these pronouncements. But you are not allowed to use the same standards of me because somehow I am above you. Somehow, as some sort of senior, journalist of the realm, these standards do not need to apply to me. I am special. I have a big problem with that, right? Because at the end of the day, what is journalism? The basic essence of journalism or the fourth estate is to tell stories that hopefully hold power accountable, right? That's essentially what I think when you come into the profession, that's what you are essentially trying to do if you are mission-driven, if you are purpose-driven. So if in the process of doing that, you have some sort of political affiliation that you think will help the cause of the mission that you are trying to accomplish, or you have some sort of political preference, or you express some sort of political preference, I don't see what that has to do with the validity of your work. I really don't see it, especially coming from people who, because I'm going to keep on making reference to the 2012 to 2015 period. These are people who, they when they were in opposition, they did things that I had never seen a media ecosystem in Nigeria do before. I've never seen things like that before. And again, I believe that a lot of ethical lines were crossed. I would go as far as to say a few legal lines were probably crossed as well. I saw these people do a lot of things, and I saw it firsthand because I worked in the same industry. We're in the same rooms. We had the discussion. I mean, I was nobody then, so I just happened to be a fly on the wall. But I saw these things firsthand. So seeing the same people coming out 7 years later and trying to present themselves as some sort of senior gatekeepers of the profession, and they are the ones who get to decide with which parameters everybody else gets to operate, and they are the arbiters of what journalistic morality and ethics are. I'm sorry, I do not believe that. I have a big problem with that. If anybody is going to lecture journalists about neutrality, about objectivity, it definitely shouldn't be the likes of Dede Alaki and Bayo Onanuga.
Okay, Agbajalingo, we have just a few minutes to go.
I think neutrality is a utopia. Like David said, the journalist is not tabula rasa, and people should stop fooling us and fooling themselves, because that red herring is actually being bandied around by people who themselves hide their own political partisanship under the toga of professionalism. I hardly see any journalist or any media house, not only in Nigeria, but all over the world, that doesn't have a leaning. And as a matter of fact, media houses and journalists have moved beyond just taking a position. They now adopt candidates. We see CNN and New York Times adopting the past 3 presidential candidates for the Democratic Party in America openly and campaigning for them. We have also seen Fox doing that for the Conservatives in the past 3 or 4 elections, and nobody has. Even the British Prime Minister that handed over to Lizzie, Boris Johnson, while he was Prime Minister, he still kept a column on Daily Telegraph, and he was writing basically about the things that were happening in his government. The journalist is not a robot. So those who say these things should stop trying to roboticize the man who sits down. I cannot sit in front of a microphone and pretend that I am a robot. I have an opinion, and as an adult, I am going to express that opinion. I see journalism as a tool to change society. I do not see journalism as a neutral arbiter anywhere. If I must be on the microphone, my goal is to change society. I went beyond that and also stepped into politics. I'm the crossover state chairman of AAC, African Action Congress, and I did that consciously, knowing also that I am a journalist, because I'm not going to just sit back and watch politicians continue to do this. I have a duty to mold opinion, and I don't. If I see clearly that this politician is a criminal who is working to the detriment of our society, I should be able to use my independent opinion to tell the public that what this person is doing. I feel offended that one of the presidential candidates is refusing to come and talk to us. I feel very offended about that, and I cannot pretend to be objective about it because that is not part of what we should call a democratic culture. And the earlier we begin to step out and do this, and tell the younger ones, even in the classroom, that journalism, neutrality in the newsroom is utopia. Anybody preaching that should come and prove it, let us see. Every human being is subjective. Every human being has an interest. Let those who hide their own partisanship under professionalism stop preaching to us about neutrality. And if we can challenge ourselves, let them come and tell us where they have been neutral. Every news media organization in Nigeria have their leaning, they have where they are standing. And we all know, nobody should stop, all of us should stop pretending to be holier than thou. We all know where every one of us stand. And they should stop suffocating and bullying the rest of us to follow their own rules.
Well, thank you very much, David Odeyi. Thank you very much, Agba Jalingo, for joining us on the morning show today.
All right. Time for a short break now. When we return, we'll have Aaron Akirjala here with Global Sports Update. Stay with us.
New Naira notes? Don't panic. Here's what you need to know. Ensure to make deposits of all old banknotes before January 31, 2023. To make the process seamless for you, all Fidelity Bank branches will be open till 6 p.m. on weekdays and 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays to allow for cash deposits only. Also, please note that bank charges on all cash deposits have been suspended by the CBN. However, charges shall still be applied on cash withdrawals. The new banknotes can be accessed at any Fidelity Bank branch nationwide from December 15, 2022. Old banknotes will remain in circulation till January 31, 2023, when they will cease to be legal tender, as directed by the CBN. For more inquiries, follow us on our social media channels or email us at true.serve@fidelitybank.ng. You can also call 0700 3035 489 or reach us on WhatsApp on 090 3000 5252. Thank you for banking with us.
We are Fidelity. We keep our word.
As a player, there's nothing better than the roar of your crowd. But in Nigeria, there's a roar that may not be heard again. With fewer than 50 lions left, they could be extinct in the next few years. From loss of habitat and prey, and snares set for illegal bushmeat. So please, say no to illegal bushmeat. Let's keep the roar alive for Nigeria. Because poaching steals from us all.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just streaming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Zenith Better Life promo is back, and it's bigger and better. You could be one of 20 lucky customers to win 150,000 Naira every 2 weeks from now till January 31st, 2023. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account and maintain a minimum balance of 5,000 Naira. For more information, visit www.zenithbank.com/betterlife. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Right, welcome back to the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. For updates on sports stories across the globe, Aaron Akirejala joins us. Aaron, it was Alele Blue yesterday at the end of the road for the Moroccans. Probably they can win the third place playoff or third place match. I don't know what is going to become their lot.
Rufai, you called it yesterday. You were right to say that you were tipping the Le Bleu of France to actually do it, and I must say it all started in the opening 5 minutes where Theo Hernandez was the one that's probably his foot rising the highest to ensure that he gave the Le Bleu an opening goal, and as it stood, it was the fastest goal in 64 years at the semi-final stage of the FIFA World Cup. But I must actually say that Morocco, for a team decided to do Africans, the Arab world, the entire world proud, because they didn't leave with their tails between their legs. They actually left with their head high. Because when you look at the stats after 90 minutes, the Le Bleu of France, the defending champions, only had 37% of the possession, but they were clinical in front of goal. They were more devastated in front of goals because Moane just coming in 44 seconds into his introduction into the Le Bleu side in that particular fixture yesterday at the Adverts Stadium meant that he actually got the second goal, which was the Silla, which was the one that probably downed Morocco ultimately, but Morocco put in a very, very hearty performance, and I must actually tell you that Morocco can hold their heads high, and they will be going into the third place match on Saturday at the Khalifa International Stadium, knowing that they can finish a business they didn't take care of at the beginning of this tournament, because their opening Group F fixture was against Croatia. It ended goalless, and they'll be hoping to do one better this time around by beating Croatia like they didn't do in the first round. So we are hoping that Morocco will do us proud, but without a doubt, without any shadow of turning, I must actually tell you that what Morocco has done has shown the world that you can do it. They've not only just proven that the World Cup can be dominated by South Americans and Europeans, that Africans can make a statement at a World Cup, and what a showing it has been. Because if you put it into perspective, they've beaten Belgium, they've beaten Canada, they've beaten Portugal, they've beaten former champion Spain. That is no fluke. Ragragu can actually hold his head high that he is a Moroccan who led a Moroccan outfit, the Atlas Lions, to a World Cup, and they gave a fantastic showing. Even European teams did not even measure up to what Morocco actually did, and I must actually say that as it stands right now, from probably the deserts in Casablanca down to even the ports in Bujumbura, every African child can believe that this is possible. And I hope African nations, about maybe 9 of them that will be going to the World Cup in 2026, will take a lot of solace and inspiration from this Moroccan side and go out there and do Africa proud. I must say kudos to them. But it's unfortunate that the dream that was meant to be, or the belief that was instilled in the hearts of people around the world, actually were reduced to a fracas, and more importantly, gory scenes that actually came out from France yesterday after that particular loss of the Atlas Lions in Montpellier, in Paris, and some other cities in France. It actually were reduced to riots, as a 14-year-old Moroccan boy, according to reports in the south of France, was killed yesterday by a motorist because the Moroccan fans accosted the man who was waving a French flag after the game, and the Moroccans stopped him. He panicked, ran over the boy, and according to police report right now, a 14-year-old boy has passed away. It's rather sad, it's rather unfortunate, it's despicable to say the least. I must say that this shouldn't be. Football is a beautiful game, and it's always one that actually warms the heart. When people take it too far, when hooliganism is introduced into football, this is what you get to see. Morocco are not down and buried. They still have a game on Saturday at the Khalifa International Stadium, and they can finish third. And regardless of what even happens in that particular game, Morocco still are the shining lights at the 2022 FIFA World Cup here in Qatar.
Yeah, you cannot be more correct, Aaron, but we look forward to the finals on Sunday, when France will have the opportunity to win back-to-back, if it is possible. And if it's able to do so, if that team is able to do so, they will be repeating the feat of Italy and also West Germany before them. But thank you very much. We have to move on now. We'll take a short break now, and when we return, we'll be talking to Victoria Ibezim Ohairi, Executive Director, Spaces for Change. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
The Zenith Better Life promo is back, and it's bigger and better. You could be one of 20 lucky customers to win 150,000 Naira every 2 weeks from now till January 31st, 2023. To qualify, simply open a Zenith Bank account and maintain a minimum balance of 5,000 Naira. For more information, visit www.zenithbank.com/betterlife. Zenith Bank, in your best interest.
Papa, mama, brother, sister, this Lagos must work for all of us. Everybody down Fueko.
Oh yes, Lagos people, papa, mama, sister, brother, auntie, plus including uncle them. Better don't land for Lagos State gidigba. Money will be for Lagos State, then go use them for Lagos State. Wella, no more baba sope. They no go chop Lagos State money. Nobody go pocket Lagos State. Then go take and build Lagos State, build road, build hospital, build houses, and now only one man fit do this job. His name na Abdulaziz Olajide Adediran Jando. He can't carry one obonge person as the deputy governor. Her name na Funke Akindele Jennifer. My people, what do we wait for? Make we vote for light, vote for change. No be the kind change where they vote before. This one na the original change. How Amumu don't do? Pay the pay.
Everybody down Fueko.
Me and my guys see enter road. They flexing my brand new moto. My baby said she win the homo. Festival of Joy Globe promo. And my fans get fans with them still win. Even if light off and we go still blow. Now they don't carry lights. We the win, someone like us still show. It's the festival of joy, glow promo. Fashion killer, dress code bigger. Win so we machine for the glow festival. My guy just they win left, right and center. That's the 611 ash to enter. Festival of joy. Oh yeah. Festival. That's the 611 ash. Win and enjoy.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Nigeria plans to phase out fossil fuels as part of its commitment to achieve net zero by 2060. The Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, back in August 24, 2022, launched Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan, ETP, establishing the country's strategy to reach a net zero emissions energy system by 2060. For the energy transition to take its course, stakeholders have called for the involvement of oil-rich communities in the green economy. They made the call at the recent launch of a report by civil society organizations in Lagos. The report, titled Energy Transition in Nigeria's Oil-Rich Communities, was jointly launched by Spaces for Change, Youths and Environmental Advocacy Center, and Extractives 360. The report was launched on the back of Nigeria's Energy Transition Plan, a major pathway in achieving universal energy access by 2030 and a carbon-neutral economy by 2060. Joining us now to discuss the 91-page research on energy transition in Nigeria's oil communities is Victoria Ibezim Ohairi, Executive Director, Spaces for Change. Welcome to the morning show.
Good morning, listeners. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Only 2 days ago, President Muhammadu Buhari was speaking at the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit, and his main focus was the subject of just energy transition and Nigeria's plan to achieve net zero by 2060. And even then, we're told that the vision is that there will be no generators, there will be greater emphasis on renewables. But what are the alternatives available for communities and non-state actors that depend on fossil fuels and may not necessarily have an alternative? But are there alternatives for them?
Thank you, Ruben. Yes, we have looked, that was what prompted the research, particularly when Vice President Yemi Osibajo launched the Energy Transition Plan, very ambitious plan. The ETP, the Energy Transition Plan, has been developed as a pathway for Nigeria meeting its climate targets by 2060. The plan, rolls out makes a lot of promises. The promise to create up to 840,000 new jobs, the promise to establish up to 5 million solar connections, the promise to lift 100 million people out of poverty, the promise to achieve full energy security for the entire population. Too many promises. So we now looked at that, prompted us to go into the report to see what is the need for communities, because if these targets are met, it means that Nigeria will be saying goodbye to its historical dependence on crude oil. So what will happen to these communities where crude oil has been extracted from for over 5 decades? Are we just going to say goodbye to crude oil and leave the communities in the way and in the state that they are? That prompted us to conduct this research together with our partners. And what we did find? We found that the Energy Transition Plan, unfortunately, is silent in communities. And communities that have borne the brunt of of fossil fuel extraction for several decades, or communities that have developed livelihoods that are intertwined with crude oil exploration and production. And there are also non-state actors that are now fully involved in both communities and non-state are fully involved in local refining, and they've been forced to resort to local refining as a result of monumental poverty and decades of governmental neglect in the region. It was sad for us to find that there weren't any provisions made in the ETP for environmental accountability, for remediation, for rehabilitation, not for addressing decades of environmental injustices that have accompanied the fossil fuel era. Again, we now looked to the energy transition proposals that have been released publicly by oil and gas corporations operating in Nigeria, both the international and indigenous companies. Unfortunately, as well, none of them provide any effectual or concrete commitment to environmental accountability. There was one of the oil companies made a lot of solid plans. Their appear solidly committed to ending gas flaring. But it is silent on what to do to the decades of harm caused by gas flaring in the region. And this is why we're drawing government's attention that the silence on the communities, the lack of attention, the lack of arrangements for communities that have been impacted, the proposals to move forward without looking back on the mistakes that have been made and correcting the mistakes that have been made, they are recipes for renewed violence in the green economy.
All right, Victoria, thanks for highlighting that. In your report, in your findings, you talk about, it's quite detailed, 91 page. You talk about the impact of extracting fossil fuel on communities, as you've just talked about now. You've talked about the importance of the just energy transition. So you're not opposing it. However, you're making a case for ensuring that communities are not left behind. So from your findings, what are some of your proposals? What are some of your recommendations to the government as to what they should do as we transition from fossil fuels to just energy?
So during the research, we interviewed communities in Imo, in Rivers, and in Bayelsa, and most of these communities are oil and gas-rich communities. So we divided, the findings are divided across two lines. First is communities that are just rich, endowed with mineral, are host to several corporations where oil exploration and production take place. Then there are communities on the other side of the divide where artisanal refining, where heavy local refining operations known as fire is going on at the moment. And the perspectives from these communities seem to be divided, but they want energy transition to happen. But that clamor for energy transition is intertwined with their clamor for environmental justice. They want decades of environmental harms in their communities addressed. They want environmental restoration. They want to return to their agrarian lifestyles. They want to live in a pollution-free environment. Then we have the communities on the other side where local refining takes place. They are hesitant about energy transition, hesitant in the sense that artisanal refining is now a lucrative industry providing employment for large numbers of people in their communities. So they are hesitant. But where they meet, both sides, where they meet is that communities want inclusion. They want participation. They do not want to be relegated as spectators. They do not want to receive handouts packaged as corporate social responsibility initiatives. They want enforceable contracts with corporations that are extracting minerals in their communities. They want to be included in conversations, in debates, in policy proposals, like the ETP that had been developed at the federal level. They also want a phased wind down of economic dependence on the center, where they have to go to the center for everything that they need. Communities that are in the creeks, communities that are in the farthest locations want a structure that we run now require them to go to the center for anything, including for electricity. And that promise is not realizable if the economic structures are not decentralized, allowing them so that those that have access to renewable resources can harness those potential and use it to create wealth for themselves. So these are the demands from communities. And they say if these injustices are not addressed first, litany or floodgate of litigation in court against corporations are not determined first, it will be unjust for the country to be moving towards a green economy without addressing the mistakes or righting the wrongs of the past.
All right, thank you very much, Victoria, for speaking to us. Victoria Ibezim-Ohairi for speaking to us this morning. It's time now for a short break. When we return, Oji Okwe will be here with details on what's trending. Stay with us.
Public service announcement. Ndimo Ndewonu. In keeping with the vision of positioning Imo as the leading digital economy state in Nigeria, His Excellency Distinguished Senator Hope Uzodimma, the Executive Governor of Imo State, through the Ministry of Digital Economy and E-Government, is commencing the first phase of Skill Up Imo project aimed at training 100,000 Imolites, specifically the youths. The training will be on entry and advanced level digital and entrepreneurship skills, which include data analytics, mobile app development, and many more. Consequently, the ministry hereby invites interested Imolites to visit the ministry's website www.imdeeg.org.ng and register for free. Prospective candidates who are shortlisted for the final batch of the training will be contacted via SMS and emails. Please note, the registration starts on the 28th of October 2022, and due to popular demand, registration will now end by 31st December 2022. Signed, Dr. Chimezie Amadi, Honorable Commissioner, Imo State Ministry of Digital Economy and E-Government. Imo Digital Economy Agenda. Technology, opportunity, people.
Imagine your wallet can be everything. Well, almost everything your bank is to you. That's exactly what First Money Wallet is. First Money Wallet from First Bank is another swift and seamless way to bank from your mobile phone. It doesn't matter if you have a First Bank account or not, nor the mobile network you use. Everyone can open a First Money Wallet, and it's very easy. Your phone number is your account number. With First Money Wallet, you can send money using just a phone number, receive money, pay bills, buy airtime and data for yourself or someone else, and check balance. You don't need a bank account at all or BVN to enjoy the boundless possibilities First Money Wallet offers. All you need is a registered phone number, and you can fund your wallet easily through your First Bank account or any bank account and debit card. What's more, First Money Wallet is highly secure with fingerprint technology and PIN, and when you need cash, just walk up to any First Money agent near you to withdraw money. No smartphone, no wahala. Just dial *894*1# on any phone. So, it doesn't matter if you live in the city or the remotest part of the country. With First Money Wallet, your transactions are easy, seamless, and secure. Download the First Money Wallet app now. Input your phone number and follow the prompts, or simply dial *894*1#. All money now on First Money. You first. First Bank.
Flexing my brand new moto. My baby said she win me homo. Festival of Joy Globe promo. And my fans get fans with them still we know. Even if light off fan, we go still go. Hey, wait. Now they don't carry lights. We dey win gen. Someone like us still show. It's the festival of Joy Globe promo. Fashion killer, dress code bigger. So we machine for the Glow Festival. My guys just they win left, right, and center. That's the 611 hash to enter. Festival of Joy. Oh, Festival that's the 611 hash to win and enjoy. Festival of Joy. Oh, Festival that's the 611 hash to enter.
Imagine your wallet can be everything. Well, almost everything your bank is to you. That's exactly what First Money Wallet is. First Money Wallet from First Bank is another swift and seamless way to bank from your mobile phone. It doesn't matter if you have a First Bank account or not, nor the mobile network you use. Everyone can open a First Money Wallet, and it's very easy. Your phone number is your account number. With First Money Wallet, you can send money using just a phone number, receive money, pay bills, buy airtime and data for yourself or someone else, and check balance. You don't need a bank account at all or BVN to enjoy the boundless possibilities First Money Wallet offers. All you need is a registered phone number, and you can fund your wallet easily through your First Bank account or any bank account and debit card. What's more, First Money Wallet is highly secure with fingerprint technology and PIN, and when you need cash, just walk up to any First Money agent near you to withdraw money. No smartphone, no wahala. Just dial *894*1# on any phone. So, it doesn't matter if you live in the city or the remotest part of the country. With First Money Wallet, your transactions are easy, seamless, and secure. Download the First Money Wallet app now. Input your phone number and follow the prompts, or simply dial *894*1#. All money Now on First Money. You first. First Bank.
I've been running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do, I'll vault it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business, revolt. Vault is the answer. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Vault is the answer. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business with Vault. By Polaris Bank.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
Vault is the answer.
I'm about to serve better breakfast.
If you're in Lagos, you need to see this.
I'm not just streaming content, I'm just escaping traffic.
Get more data to enjoy exclusive content. Dial *141# now.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Public service announcement. Ndimo Ndewonu. In keeping with the vision of positioning Imo as the leading digital economy state in Nigeria, His Excellency Distinguished Senator Hope Uzodimma, the Executive Governor of Imo State, through the Ministry of Digital Economy and E-Government, is commencing the first phase of Skill Up Imo project aimed at training 100,000 Imolites, specifically the youths. The training will be on entry and advanced level digital and entrepreneurship skills, which include data analytics, mobile app development, and many more. Consequently, the ministry hereby invites interested Imolites to visit the ministry's website www.imdeeg.org.ng and register for free. Prospective candidates who are shortlisted for the final batch of the training will be contacted via SMS and emails. Please note, the registration starts on the 28th of October 2022, and due to popular demand, registration will now end by 31st December 2022. Signed, Dr. Chimezie Amadi, Honorable Commissioner, Imo State Ministry of Digital Economy and E-Government. Imo Digital Economy Agenda. Technology, opportunity, people.
Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now is Ojinika Ope with stories trending around the world. Hello, Janek.
Good morning, Dr. Abati.
Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm good.
Fantastic. Good morning, Ayo.
Good morning,
Ayomi.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's
what
fine.
I'm going to start calling you.
Yeah.
Good morning, Rufai.
Morning,
How are you?
How are you?
Fantastic.
Stay stronger.
I will. Well, all right. Good morning to you, viewers. Here are some of the stories that are trending across the globe.
In the United States, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari met with President Joe Biden in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday on the sidelines of the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit. Photos shared by the presidency show both presidents in a meeting with Anthony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, and Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jeffrey Onyema, among other dignitaries. Buhari departed Abuja on Sunday to join other African leaders for the summit aimed at rebooting U.S. relations with the African continent. Then, Tanitoluwa Adewumi, the 12-year-old Nigerian refugee who won the New York State Chess Championship in 2019, and his family have been granted asylum by the United States government. Tani's family had fled Nigeria to seek religious asylum on account of the Boko Haram crisis in 2017. At the young age of 8, Tani made headlines after winning the 2019 New York Chess Championship by defeating 73 other opponents while living in a homeless center. In the United Kingdom, the Charity Commission on Wednesday granted consent for the University of Cambridge to return 116 Benin bronzes taken by the British Armed Forces during the sacking of Benin City in 1879 to Nigeria. The legal ownership of the artifacts, according to the commission, will be transferred from Cambridge University's Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology to the Nigerian National Commission for Museums and Monuments. Under sports, France beat Africa's first ever World Cup semi-finalist, Morocco, 2-0, ending their historic run in competition on Wednesday. The French team will play a much-anticipated final match with Argentina on Sunday in front of the country's president, Emmanuel Macron. France is looking to become the first team to retain the title since Brazil in 1962, while Argentina is on a mission to win football's ultimate prize for the third time in what is likely to be Lionel Messi's last World Cup. Finally, under entertainment, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex's highly anticipated docu-series, Harry and Meghan, which premiered last week, has already broken Netflix records. Volume 1 of the show debuted with 81.55 million hours viewed, the highest view hours of any documentary title in a premiere week, according to Netflix. The docu-series, helmed by Oscar-nominated director Les Garbos, is also the #2 English series being streamed globally and has appeared in the top 10 TV list in 85 countries, including the United Kingdom.
It's a dirty game. The pain and suffering of women marrying into this institution, this feeding frenzy. No one knows the full truth.
Well, let's begin what's trending. Presidential candidates of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his People's Democratic Party counterpart, Atiku Abubakar, were absent on Wednesday as Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi and Rabiu Kwankwaso of the New Nigeria People's Party joined others to sign an agreement on inclusive governance. Organizers of the event, Women in Politics Forum, Youth Hub Africa, and Inclusive Friends Association said the agreement was a consolidated agenda to be used as an advocacy tool in the 2023 general election and beyond. Labour Party candidate Peter Obi, who spoke at the event, decried poor representation of women and youth in the administration of the country, stating that Nigeria cannot progress when the most productive demography are left out of government, promising that his administration, if elected in 2023, will commit to the affirmative action on women and youth.
I'm committed to women education. I'm committed to ensuring that women are inclusive beyond the percentage, Rosia. Our government will be dominated by women and youth. And I'm committed to ensuring that those with disabilities, I've always preached, don't look down on anybody unless you're trying to lift the person up. And I'll lift them up.
No, Dr. Bati, this event was for the top 4 presidential candidates to attend, and it's appalling that, it was just the 2 of them on this very important topic. We are seeing these presidential candidates just disregarding Nigeria as a whole in this type of way.
Well, I'm sure the candidates were not there. They would have to, explain why they were not there. However, this was the second event taking place within the space of about 2 months. There was one before now, led by Dr. Afolabi Akiyode, and at that event, they came up with a document called Manifesto, at which they asked the various political parties to submit, to accept, to commit to ensuring inclusiveness. And now you have this second effort by another group, also talking about, that's a book issue area, talking about inclusive governance. Now, the idea of inclusive governance is very important to the extent that Nigeria, for example, is a signatory to the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, 1990. Nigeria is also a signatory to other things that talk about inclusiveness. And if you look at the Nigerian Constitution, 1999, Section 42 thereof, it talks about equality and non-discrimination, either on the basis of gender or on the basis of circumstances of birth or religion. In 2006, Nigeria, in fact, came up with a national gender policy. So every election cycle, we talk about inclusive government. Inclusive, in this case, involving persons living with disabilities, involving youth, involving women. And you have groups like this, always reminding us of affirmative action, 35% affirmative action. And Nigeria is far behind. Senegal has about 57%. Rwanda has close to 50%. But Nigeria is just around 5%. Which is a scandal. So that's why this kind of conversation is important. And in the various agenda that, these groups in civil society bring up, they're asking for, representation of women in decision-making positions, in cabinet positions, political parties involving women, and not restricting them to the distribution of refreshment at political events or the women wing, where they dance to welcome male members. The inclusion of youth, and also the inclusion of persons living with disabilities. And of course, one of the achievements of this administration is that this president passed that prohibition against discrimination of persons with disabilities law. So the people pushing for affirmative action, they have a strong case. But the issue is, will Nigeria do it? In 2016, we came up with a revised national gender policy, 2016 to 2026. Somebody had to go to court to force the Nigerian government to implement that policy. Judgment was given in April, that particular gender policy should be implemented. Who is implementing it? So that's why it's important that we ought to continue to remind the politicians and the political parties about inclusion and about the fact that this is even a matter of law and human rights as properly spelled out in the various protocols, the Constitution, the African Charter on Peoples and Human Rights, and also various international conventions to which Nigeria is signatory.
Yes, Ayo, Rabiu Kwankwaso, during the event, also talked about the effect of inclusive government. He talked about how Nigerians are making waves in several countries across the globe and how inclusive government is the surest way for rapid growth.
Absolutely. Research has shown that when you have a more inclusive government, you have a more empowered government. You have a government that's more effective. Unfortunately, as Dr. Abati has reeled out the legislature, the advocacy plans, the policies and all that have been signed, especially when we talk about inclusivity, it's important to note that it's not just for women, it's also for persons living with disability. In a country like Nigeria, it's also speaking to the young people. The question I was going to ask the presidential candidate of the PDP, Waziri Atiku Abubakar, is he's committed in his campaign. He's talked a lot about inclusivity, especially with regards to young people and women. He's even said he would invest $10 million in providing jobs for this sector. And I would like to understand why he wasn't there, he wasn't present to sign it. And then I'd also like to pose a question to the presidential candidates, and I think beyond presidential candidates, as we've seen, even the gubernatorial candidates, because when it comes to representation, it's not just an appointment at federal level, it's an appointment across levels, from state level, local government level, because these are the decision makers. We need to have a more representative government, and I think that's, these are key questions to ask. The only thing I was going to ask for the presidential candidates are, what are their plans and policies towards persons living with disabilities? These are a group of people in Nigeria who have been neglected for too long, and it's time we started to speak about it.
Well said, Ayo. Rufai.
Oji, I'm not surprised that people wouldn't sign that document. You know why? You should ask them, have they been able to sign the peace accord in the first place?
That's another question.
Truth has to be said. See, culture will eat strategy for breakfast, and we deceive ourselves too much. We pay lip service to laws that affect people in our society, that talks to things about inclusiveness. We put all the laws in place, but we cannot implement it because we don't have a culture that cares for the downtrodden in society. We don't have a culture that cares for women and children, no matter the laws we've been able to put in place. And that's why you see a woman is disadvantaged in society. People living with disability are disadvantaged in society, and society moves on as though nothing is happening. It is a society that destroys its own weak. You are put on the ground in this country because you are weak. Dr. Badi talked about President signing that Disability Act. I'm sure he remembers what happened in the National Assembly afterwards. How people living with disability had to go protest in the National Assembly and they were beaten blue-black.
I remember that story.
You remember Paralympians? That they were protesting in Lagos?
Yes.
That they were tear-gassed and beaten. These are people that went out there and won medals for this country where able-bodied people disappointed this country. So that's the way we are wired. And I'm not surprised some presidential candidate don't sign it. It's all lip service. It's all election talk. But the question is, how can we go from this step to truly signing things like this? And not just signing it because I want to sign it, implementing it because it affects all of us. We forget one way or the other. No matter who you are, you face some certain level of disability in your life. If you pray to grow old, you will face some certain level of disability in your life. Nobody asked for it, but it happens. How can we adapt this into our society? Where are the strong laws, for instance, for ramps into offices, for ramps into public buildings and banks and the likes? Where are those laws? I have sat on many panels and commissions as regards this to advocate for people living with disability, which even extends beyond even disability that might have happened, but even congenital disability in the first place. Children living with autism and some spectrum, challenges. What are the laws there? Do our hospitals even have counseling centers for parents that have children living with disability and autism and things like that? So it's society that downplays its poor. Nigerian society is so wired that it is only the rich it favors. If you are poor, if you are disadvantaged, go away. And that's why we must start to change culture to be able to ensure that the poor people are amplified. Ayo, you know the privileges disabled people get in the UK. There's even a funny joke people make in the UK, and you know that joke, that sometimes people wish that they were even disabled. Because you get parking space preferences. You get all sorts of preferences, even more than able-bodied people. Except we start to do that here, we're not ready. So I'm not surprised.
Well said, Rufai. Well, as Peter Obi and Rabiu Kwankwaso joined others to sign an agreement on inclusive governance on Wednesday, a crowd of supporters converged on the Trade Fair complex in Minna, Niger State, to declare support for the All Progressives Congress presidential candidate, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Tinubu, while thanking the crowd for their support, in a video that has now gone viral on social media, attempted to recite Christian and Muslim prayers at the same time, eliciting several reactions. Let's take a look.
Regime. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of our Lord, the magnificent, the Father of all, the ruler, the greatest.
Okay, Dr. Abate, no, we're all cracking up. But wait, no, we can't take our next story because this is a story that is trending on social media. I'll take one reaction that I just got, that he was only trying to...
in the name of Amen.
Yeah, in the name of Amen. That's what he said. And then, no, hold on. This person says he was trying to translate what he said in Arabic into English and couldn't even do that. Dr. Abate...
In the name of Amen. That's a new one, isn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is that he's also... Can this man let me...
You say Amen at the end of a prayer.
Yes, you do. But he's also... his wife is a Christian, right? And he's always. It was refreshing to see that he could pray in both religions. But I don't know your thoughts about this story.
Well, I'm just as speechless as Dr. Bati, and there isn't much to say. The truth is that when we bring up videos like this, it's almost as if people are saying, but he keeps giving us. He keeps at every. Now it's so bad that at every campaign ground, we're not looking at him discussing. We're looking for the next social media trending video. It's very unfortunate. It's quite unfortunate. I mean, you can make the argument for him that people can make mistakes. He's a human being. He has, he can make errors, but this is an error, one error becoming too many. Yes. Too many. So, I mean, I have nothing to... Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that he was trying to show his, the fact that he's very balanced religiously and that he can pray, like you said, both in a Muslim way and in a Christian way.
I thought it was refreshing to see that. Rufai.
So, from my little Muslim knowledge, I mean, you might correct me. What is Awusu Billahi Minash Shaitani Rajim? All right. So, from my little Muslim knowledge, and this is me that my father was a Muslim for 75 years before he converted at his deathbed, at 75. So, and this is me that, did read a little bit of the Tira. But, I mean, what do I know? This is not even only what has happened. And this is me speaking this objectively. You heard what happened yesterday, that the campaign was abruptly stopped, and a certain newspaper reported that it was just few couple of lines, God bless you, God bless you, God bless you. Although there's been a lot of rebuttals that, he had other engagements, but it was abruptly stopped. I've also heard some other rebuttals that, maybe the stage was about to fall, but it abruptly stopped. There have been a lot of this gaffes, been a lot of this moments, been a lot of this, he should check his health. I think it's incumbent, and going forward, I know it might not be possible in this election cycle. I think it's incumbent for us in the next election cycle to ensure that all presidential candidates release their health records. We can't afford to go through this. I keep citing the case of Umar Musa Yar'Adua. You remember that famous call, Umaru? I said, I thought you were dead. I'm alive. And the man did die in office. It is time for us to be able to be transparent across board for those that seek the highest office in the land, to be able to release their medical records so that Nigerians can have them and scrutinize them. That's just what I'll call for. All right. Some have argued in his favor that this might just be a slip. Some might be able to enunciate the fact that these sleeps are getting one too many. But for us, we know it is God that gives life. It is also good that people should release their medical records so that Nigerians have a fair idea of how they are medically. And people can have the best medical record and still pass on anyway. But it is also incumbent on us to release those records for Nigerians to see.
All right, Rufai. We shall take our final story. As the redesigned Naira notes become available today in banks across Nigeria, according to the policy framework released by the country's central bank, a traveler in a video now making the rounds on social media appeared to be stranded after a bus conductor in Lagos State refused to collect her new Naira note. Let's take a look.
This one, even if I close eye, I will collect this one. Wow.
Okay, the other one. And then as soon as they go, they pass me, they go, I can't use go work because they wait on. I'm not getting the other one. I'm not getting the other one.
Enter another motor. How you go say me she enter another motor? Say na fake money she give you. Why are you passing money? I no go collect it. No be one day they go start to spend the money and the day na today. Now one day you go see the money now.
Okay, sensitization. I mean, this. I mean, I cannot independently verify this video because it just came out.
Unfortunately,
this morning. Yes.
We don't have time.
Yes, we don't. We don't have time. But yes, the new Naira notes are out, and hopefully Nigerians become more aware of the design and not have a passenger get stranded.
Hopefully the new notes will be available.
Yes.
Not that we will see the new notes at social event centers at weekends.
Dr. Bati has been advocating for this.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Ojineka.
Thank you all for your great analysis as always. Well, that's all I have for you on What's Trending today. I'll see you tomorrow.
And that's all on today's edition of The Morning Show. Bosino Mofaye will be here next to take you through Global Business Report. Stay with us. It's still the Arise News channel.
We're so excited to be here today, screening 200 women in uniforms. We're very happy that we can bring to them the right education about breast and cervical cancer.
The screening exercise at the FRSC Abuja headquarters has been amazing. We've been able to screen about 100 female staff successfully.
You see our eyes popping when we have to do something with women.
In the year 2021 alone, we lost 44,699 Nigerian women to cancer.
I learned how to examine my breast to know when the cancer is there and not. I want to just thank the initiative of Access Bank.
We are grateful and we are happy with Access Bank. Kudos to Access Bank. We say thank you.
My people, my name is Emeka. Mekus Kamat. Let me get all this photo.